Sleepy town settled for the night, where every lawn is tailored just right, and it's about time that the back porch light comes on. At that house down the street, at that house on Magnolia Street. I don't drink too much like actual milk or dairy or heavy cream.
Nah.
Kind of sits
Unless it's in a pasta.
Unless it's in a pasta. Yeah, I don't really use too much cream in my coffee.
Mm-hmm.
Right today I have another matcha, or as you called it, what did you call it the other day?
Basil pesto mayo or something.
Pesto mayo. Yeah, I'm drinking another pesto mayo.
Did you find your chalk?
Fuck, I forgot again. I did not. I have chalk in my kitchen drawer somewhere. It's buried. Anyway, hey witch hey.
Hey witch hey. I'm Christina.
I'm Justina. Welcome to Magnolia Street, your one and only practical magic fandom podcast.
Every week, we deep dive on different aspects of the movie and the books, as well as treat your ears to our very own practical magic inspired original music. That's usually Justina's line, and I went and fucked it up.
I'm sorry, I wasn't looking.
We can reverse it, flip it, and reverse it.
Yeah, I wasn't even looking at the notes. I was just flying off the handle. I was gonna say flying off the seat of my pants.
I'm bursting out of my pants.
Bursting out the pants. Yeah. So anyway, where do we leave off here? So this is the third week in a row of talking about sluts.
Yeah, man. How are you feeling about it?
I think I'm ready to wrap this one up. I think
too.
We beat this one into the ground a little bit,
too.
But we do still have quite a bit to talk about today.
Again, this week we're going to have possibly some triggering words, so just be aware of that. And if you're just coming on to us brand new, I recommend going back a few episodes and starting with part 1 of this little series just to get a little more context.
As a reminder, this actually made it onto our topics list from the very beginning. We've been wanting to talk about sluts forever. Not just because of that one line, when Sally says, "Since when is being a slut a crime in this family?" But because throughout the movie and the books, Alice makes a point to color Jillian in a sex-positive light. She loves who she loves. She doesn't make it complicated. And then there's a couple other characters that we talked about over the course of these past 2-3 episodes. There's April, their cousin, and then Vincent, who also on the flip side is the double standard of the whole slut praise.
That's true.
Right? Because guys don't really get as much shit as we do for being sex positive.
That is true. He was left to his own devices.
Yes, exactly.
Or vices.
Or vice. Exactly. So this is part 3 of slut praise. So last week we took an inside look on where the concept of slut sits today with women all over the world. And this week we're exploring one of those unpopular opinions, some slut myths, and other corners of pop culture in which this trope shows up. We got a lot of pop culture today.
This first article is by Holly Rodrin, and its unpopular opinion, being called a slut is actually a compliment. So this was actually a lot longer of an article, but this portion was probably the most interesting part, so I just took this. It says, so why are women slut-shamed in the first place? In a controversial article called The Evolution of Bitchiness has been recently making the rounds across social media. The Atlantic explored what it is about being around skimpily dressed women that drives other women to be, well, bitches. It turns out that there's actually quite a fascination with the topic, even among prominent social scientists. From lab studies observing aggressive behavior to data analysis of the cultural suppression of female sexuality, the psychology behind why we slut shame is a hot topic not just on the streets, but in the ivory tower. Here's the gist of their findings. So number 1, we want to hold on to the idea of using sex for power, and that means that women need to be in control. If men start thinking we want sex as much as they do, we worry that they'll lose the benefit of having a high-demand bargaining tool. Because of this, we try to suppress other women's overt expressions of sexuality in order to keep up with the charade that it's us that have something they want. Number two, we want to tear down the most successful competitors. We can't stop the guys from going after whoever they want, but we can make it more socially costly for them to do so by indulging in gossip and trash talk. If we can successfully turn, quote, the sexy girl into, quote, the slutty girl, we've stayed off competitors by making her less desirable. So we often try to equate the two. So in essence, we, the whole collective we, when slut shaming, don't trust our boyfriends or significant others, hands down. The study participants said that they were much less likely to want to introduce their boyfriends to the same woman when she was more skimpily dressed. It's basic economics. Remember that intro class you took your freshman year of college when supply is low and prices go up? By policing each other to make sure that the other women aren't giving it away, women are essentially trying to preserve a higher bargaining value for sex, which usually is, quote, paid in the form of agreeing to long-term commitment. So we don't want our man to think that other women might have higher sex drives because frankly, sometimes there's things we'd rather do than have sex. And we don't want guys to be comparing how much we want it to other women at all. If they see women dress sexually and wonder if they're missing out, we worry that they may start questioning their commitment. So that was a little bit of maybe the science behind why other women slut shame.
All right, so 12 myths about slutty girls keeping you from your female pleasure potential. This is from sluttygirlproblems.com. Wow. All right, so myth number 1, sluts are doing it for attention. So growing up in a school system that penalizes girls, even shames them for showing too much shoulder, I've often heard that women show too much skin for, or quote, too much skin for attention. Allegedly, we dress in ways that are intentionally designed to excite the male gaze and steal husbands. For the pure thrill of having all that glorious, delicious attention. Hang on to your husbands, girls.
That's right.
Yeah. So women who wore a skirt too short or a top too small are labeled sirens and to be avoided like the devil himself.
The devil himself.
Yet, despite the common myth, our clothing choices, no matter how provocative to the outside eye, aren't necessarily for attention. This author says, I wear clothes that make me feel comfortable and show my personality, not because I want everyone to see more of my ass than the average Karen finds acceptable. You should be so blessed to glimpse my tight, round ass, should I wish to show it.
This
I wish I
writer,
had
my
a tight,
goodness.
round ass.
I got a plywood ass.
I got a pancake.
A little 2x4 back there.
Oh my god. In a similar vein, we've all heard about the slut who flirted with every boy, quote, for attention, or the slut who dated and slept around, obviously, again, quote, for attention. Flirting and seeking physical connection from someone might mean I want their attention. I want them to see me, feel me, want me in several intimate ways, or perhaps I simply want to have fun, connect, and have some pleasure. Beyond that, it might mean I'm really feeling myself that day and am lighting up a room, or simply that I'm being friendly and it's being mistaken for flirting. Regardless, there are some who boast about their sexual experiences and others who prefer not to kiss and tell. But despite what you know about my, quote, oh so sinful sexual exploits, I didn't fuck them for your attention, and attention is rarely my main goal. We're all programmed, I feel like, as women to slut shame and to, like, judge other women for dressing a certain way or exuding a certain amount of confidence. When I find myself going to that place of being that judgy person that's been programmed by society, I have to like flip the switch in my brain. And I've been finding myself doing this a lot more lately. When I see a girl on social media doing something a little out of the box, instead of being like, what the fuck is this chick's problem? I'll be like, she's really feeling herself.
Yeah, I agree.
Herself.
Yeah,
you know,
good for you.
Right.
Yeah.
So maybe she's just feeling herself. She's not worried about what other people are thinking. And maybe that's part of the reason why we're thinking what we might be thinking. Right?
Is because we are worried about what other people are thinking.
Exactly. And we've also been so programmed by society to think that way.
What I thought you were going to say was I thought you were going to bring up the story of Gina and Mark and us getting sushi and the waitress hitting on Mark. And you were saying, oh, Gina, she's going to steal your husband. And she was like, take him. Like, I don't give a shit.
Well, I mean, you've met Mark. He's kind of a handful, right? So
it was just funny that being comfortable and knowing your relationship and being honest in your relationship, you just have a totally different outlook on how other women are or aren't a
Right.
problem. But
Right.
in their
Right.
case, it didn't seem like Gina had any problem. Like, that's fine. I know he's your problem now.
Right. Yeah. Because I mean, let's be honest, Mark is a little bit of a handful, so she'd probably feel relieved to get rid of them for a few
And
hours.
I think of like when I'm out with Aaron, I don't think I've ever thought like, oh, is he looking at other girls? Da da da. Do you know how long it took for him to know that I was flirting with him and for him to like give me a hug? He's just oblivious. So I'm not
My
worried.
my husband's the same way. I gave my husband a really nice hand massage last night, and it didn't go anywhere else. I was just like, all right, good night, I guess.
You're welcome. I'll be here all week.
Right? I'm like,
Oh,
okay. We've been married so long, it's just like, whatever.
yeah.
Well, not even just married, we've been together so long. It's just
Mhm.
like, all right, thanks, babe. Thanks for the hand massage. I'm gonna go to bed now. Like, all right, I'll go. I guess I'll go fuck myself then.
That's so funny. Woo.
I also had to pursue my husband. He had no fucking idea that we
Right.
were even on a first date.
Oh, that's so funny.
This is back in our 20s, right? So, like, we're at our local watering hole and we see one of our friends walk by and we're like, oh my God, oh, you're here too, blah, blah, blah. This is mine and my husband's first date in my mind, right? Because
Okay.
we were friends for like a year before we even went on this quote date.
Hmm.
So like I'm like, all right, cool. I'm gonna finally get to know this guy a little more. So we see our friends there and she's like, come on, you guys want to come sit with us? He's like, okay. And I'm like, we're on a fucking date. You motherfuckers. Guess he didn't realize it was a date. I was like, all right, I guess we'll hang out with everybody now.
Oh.
So
Oh.
yeah.
So speaking of like being comfortable in your relationships, it was like a meme online, and it was a receipt from getting food or something like that. And instead of the tip, it said, "Don't call my husband sweetheart." No tip. And that was it. I'm like, I don't give a shit. Like, who cares?
Yeah. I don't know if I've ever seen girls flirting necessarily, like with Avi when we're out and about.
Except
But
on the
like,
boat in Salem.
well, yeah, but
That's
I
a
mean,
different
she was
story.
that's
Horse
a
of a
little
different
bit
color.
different. She was like 60. She was like a grandma. I was like, listen, lady, if you want to flirt with my husband, you do you.
Yeah.
It's fine with me. He was her Roger for that boat
Oh,
ride,
Roger.
right? So having sex or fucking a guy is not necessarily a girl's main goal if they dress or act a certain way. So now moving on to the LGBTQ plus community, they may hear this stereotype more than most. So it says the young woman exploring her desires for another female must be doing it to get her parents or the boy's attention, not because she could genuinely be interested in girls. The person who always dressed like a man starts dressing like a woman because they're desperately craving attention or quote attention, not because they're expressing their identity. But let's be honest. We've all known that girl growing up who would just make out with other girls to get the guy's attention.
Totally. Oh, totally. Yep.
And guess how many of those are with women now? None of them.
Zero.
Every single one of them made out with another girl for attention.
Zero.
But I'm not lumping everybody into that category. The false conclusion that attention is the end goal of self-expression or seeking intimacy of any kind speaks to our overall disdain for women's autonomy and self-expression, and the patriarchal centering of men and the male gaze, as if every action must be for someone else's benefit or attention rather than our own self-actualization.
If I'm choosing a outfit outside of my norm, because you know me and people listening have seen my Instagram and pictures online, like I don't
Like,
dress.
you mean your leather pants?
That is the biggest like deviation from my norm, right?
Listen, everybody, Christina wears those under her church cloak. She doesn't need to impress you.
I'm here to impress the Lord. Thank you. I'm here to turn him to my sinful path.
You want to get turned with Jesus.
I think putting on that a persona, like not the leather pants, but if I do
Right.
dress up, if I put on a dress, I can't wear heels anymore because of my broken ankle. But if I'm putting on something, it's to make me feel like more empowered and maybe
Yes.
make me feel more confident, because I am not a confident person. I
Mhm.
can turn the Gemini on when I need to, but again, like there's something about clothes, especially like the leather jacket is so cool, or like, and sometimes I need
Yes.
that. I need that attitude. Going back to like a pop pantheon, using clothes, using fashion, using glamour to make your magic. That's where I
Right.
put it in as. Like, I'm not going out to impress anybody. My husband's seen all the goods. Like, I don't need to impress him. And he's never complained about like, hey, I wish you would dress nicer. Like, he don't give a shit.
Yeah.
He's
Yeah.
like, I wish you would wear less. You know?
I feel like most guys like don't really care. I feel like women put more pressure on themselves than they need to when like trying to impress a guy. Like, guys, I feel like they really don't care about that stuff. If they do, then like fuck them. They're not worth your time, you
Right.
know?
I think most of the time we dress for each other. We dress, women dress for other women. And I saw
Yeah.
something somewhere like, I'm not dressing for men. I'm dressing for that teenage kid to look at me and be like, holy shit, she's cool. I want to look like that. That's what we
Yeah.
dress for, to be
And
cool.
how many times like you have an event with your girlfriends and you call each other up and you're like, "What are you
What are you
wearing?"
wearing? Yeah.
You all want to make sure you're on the same page because like if one of you is dressed up too much and the rest of you look frumpy as fuck, then like that the balance is off there. Like you all have to have like an equal level of slut. Like when you watch Sex in the City and they're all strutting down that New York City street,
Hmm.
they all got it going on. Like
Hmm.
they called each other before they did that walk. Like, what are you wearing? Let me make
Yes.
sure. And you don't want to wear the same exact thing either. Or maybe you do.
You
Like,
can't
I
look
don't know.
like a rickety ass bitch when your friend's looking like Angelina Jolie over there. And what did you
Exactly.
and I do when I was packing, when we were packing to go to Boston, right?
Yeah.
The first
Yeah.
time. Like I was
Yeah.
like, okay, here's what I'm packing. And then I sat on your bed and while we were like looking at clothes, like and we were coordinating. And that's
Yeah.
so fun.
We also had a photo shoot too, so that was a little different because we had to style. We weren't only dressing for an event. Like we had to style like a shoot and like looks
Hmm.
and different styles that go with the background that we're going to be standing in and
Hmm.
like
It's
um.
situational, right?
But yeah, exactly, exactly.
Yeah.
Sometimes my mom calls me and asks me what I'm wearing, or like when somebody calls me and asks me what I'm wearing, I get kind of pissed. I
Do
get pissed
you?
because like yeah, because I always feel like I don't know, maybe it's the Sagittarian in me. I always try so hard to be so individual and not like anybody else. And when somebody wants to be like me, I'm like, fuck off, find your own style. I can't tell you how many, or like if I show up to a party and another bitch is wearing the same thing that I'm wearing, and it's
Mm.
happened on multiple occasions, I'm like, where the fuck did that bitch find that dress? I'm supposed to be the only one in that
You want
dress.
individuality. I think if I've
Yeah.
ever asked you, I want to know, are we wearing pants or are we wearing dresses? And
What
that's
the
the deviation.
right? What's the dress code? It's not
Yeah,
like I want to be exactly like you. It's like
right.
what is appropriate to wear in that situation, which I
Right.
completely understand. But when certain people do it, and I think you know who I'm talking about,
Yeah, I
when
do.
certain people do it and they show up wearing the same shit as me, oh fuck
They
you.
can go fuck themselves.
Fuck you, bitch.
Oh my God.
So, yeah, it depends on who it is and I guess what the situation is. Anyway,
What's myth number two?
so myth number 2 is that sluts will sleep with anyone. This says just because someone identifies as a slut or has been defamed as one by society, which we're going to talk a little bit about a lot of celebrities who were, attempted to be defamed by slut shaming and, stuff beyond their own control, stuff that was supposed to be private,
Hmm.
or has been defamed as one by society does not mean that they don't have standards or desires when it comes to a partner. Sexual drive and the ability to frequently abate it says nothing about a slut's standards. A person who self identifies as a slut likely loves herself and often has high standards because they're letting themselves have what they want freely versus worrying about what others may think. Often, people think that sluts are objectifying themselves. While a slut simply feels free to embody and express their sexuality, it doesn't mean they aren't choosy or don't have preferences. And hey, if you're a slutty girl who will sleep with anyone, as long as you are happy and healthy and getting consent, I couldn't care less.
Hmm.
Why? Because it affects me in no way, shape, or form. Keep using protection, be smart, and do you. Basically, the aunt's advice.
Very good. Yeah, nice.
Yeah. All right. So, myth number 3, sluts have daddy issues.
Oh.
So, while this myth is inherently untrue, some sluts may have what we call, quote, daddy issues, some may not. That's not for us to guess or judge. Many people have trauma, and how we navigate and heal from our trauma isn't reflective of our worth or value. And this author says, what I want to address is how we project a father's mistakes or absence onto the child he neglected or harmed and then use their parents' behavior to demean and degrade someone navigating that trauma. This myth implies and often outright says that the supposed effects of childhood trauma are somehow her fault, and this must be the reason she's sleeping with people. If
Hmm.
you believe that, quote, daddy issues is creating sluts, then the solution would be to make fathers do better, not to shame women for having sex.
Hell yeah.
So myth number 4, feminists hate men. This comes more with the label feminist than it does with slut. However, if you're really a capital S, capital G slutty girl, then you're a feminist. And here's the thing, feminists don't hate men. I mean, yes, some of us do for personal reasons, and most of us will admit that some cis men, due to the patriarchal society they live in, can be generally kind of trash. But come on, we love our guy friends, we love our male identifying allies, and a lot of us love the D, which often is attached to a man. So no, feminists and sluts don't generally dislike men. I've loved a man and his pleasurable penis so much that I've even replicated it to use on my own when he's not there.
Oh shit.
Okay. Wow. Okay then.
All right.
You do you. And that's another thing. Like, I feel like all women are labeled feminists too. Not all women and not all feminists hate men.
There's a TikTok going around like, you can tell I'm not a feminist because I like wearing dresses, or you can tell I'm not a feminist because I like to cook. Like, I think people are confused. I don't think that word means what you really think it means, you know?
Right. I consider myself pro women. I feel like the word feminist comes with such like a negative connotation because they're just known in society as being like so harsh when it comes to the opposite sex. I believe men and women should be equal. I don't think women reign supreme. I don't think men should reign supreme.
Right.
Even though like society, we know it's a man's world because
Mhm.
society has shown us that.
We just want equal opportunities.
But we have to work harder to flip the script. Not so much flip it, but like just be on the same kind of level, the same playing field. Myth number 5, sluts hate women. And we just basically kind of touched on this a little bit, but there are women who like to say, quote, other women don't like me, or I prefer being friends with guys. Maybe some women have been betrayed by a friend or haven't had a lot of women in their lives, but the average slut loves women. We love our sisters and not just our CIS sters or biological sisters. We share our pain, our happiness, our advice with fellow women and femmes and create our own sense of slutty sisterhood together. Womanhood and therefore sluthood is a community. There are women who hate sluts for different reasons, some listed above. It's not often that a slut hates women. And like I said, if you're one of my best friends, I'm calling your ass a slut. And that's a term of endearment.
Totally. Yeah.
I'll be offended if I call you. I'm like, hey, slut. Hey, ho.
Yeah.
Every single one of my friends, I'm pretty sure I call them a bitch on a daily basis. I'm like, I love you, bitch.
And that's how you know you're close. Because there's some people, like, you'll start to skirt that line. I remember when I started, like, Marcoing you early on, and we were just getting used to each other, and I was like, what up, ho? Like, what up, rickety-ass bitch? And you're like, did you just call me a bitch?
I'm like, all right, I guess we're best friends now. Yeah. So, you got to use that word, not sparingly,
it means
but like...
I like you.
Exactly. When you're feeling out a new friendship,
It's leveling
you definitely
up.
have... Yeah, exactly. It is. It's leveling up for sure. So myth number 6, sluts are bad feminists. So you've read my feminist stance in the first 5 points, but you're still not sure that I'm a feminist, this author says. You might have the opinion that embracing your sexuality as a woman is disempowering or feeds into the heteronormative patriarchy that so often degrades women. That's the thing. For some, it might not be empowering, but for other women, and most slutty girls, being sexual is a thing of power. If it's not one of your methods of fighting the patriarchy, that's fine, but it is one of mine, and other women choose to embrace this lifestyle as well. Real feminism means accepting that both paths of action and any in between are okay. And myth number 7, sluts are going to end up old and lonely with only cats for company. Hey, I am not opposed to that.
Is that why Jillian said you and me in this big house, 2 old biddies with all these cats? She knew they were going to be sluts.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Exactly. So this says, first of all, if I end up middle-aged with only cats, wine, pizza, Netflix, my vibe, and books for company, I'll be a happy camper. Listen, I'm with you. I'm with her here. So let's acknowledge that for some slutty girls, this is pretty fucking ideal. But on the real conversation, dude, that's just not true. Being a feminist doesn't mean you're an outsider or incorrect. Being a slut doesn't mean that either. Having radical or unique views about life might make slutty girls different, but being different doesn't set you up for life alone. If anything, it means we are forward thinking, ahead of our time, and ready to embrace the future to come, whether that future involves a husband, a wife, 10 cats, or all three.
Isn't that funny though that we talked about in our spinsters episode the cat lady trope, but it
Mm-hmm.
also comes up here. If you are a prude, you're gonna die alone surrounded by cats. If you're a slut, you're gonna end up alone surrounded by cats.
Yes. Again, society has ingrained these tropes and thoughts and ideals into our brains. And it's, it's up to us to deprogram that. Just be a girl's girl, right? As they say, a girl's girl,
Be a
not
girl's girl.
bashing. Don't bash a girl for feeling herself.
Yes.
Is basically what I'm trying to say.
Yes.
Myth number 8, a slutty lifestyle is unhealthy. So this says some slutty girls are trans, some are LGBTQ+, some have multiple sexual partners, some smoke pot, some masturbate a whole freaking lot,
Mhm.
some are party animals, some are non-binary, some are vegan, some are adrenaline junkies, some are fat. If you fall into any of these categories, you've probably been told that you or your choices are unhealthy, but that's just not true. If you are happy and healthy, if you are not harming others, if you are using protection, if you are open and honest with your sexual partners, then there is nothing wrong with your lifestyle. Quote, healthy means something different for everyone. You worry about you and I'll worry about me. And exactly, like
There you go.
I can't stand when I see people like so wrapped in other people's business. It's like, why do you care what they do with their body, their life? Like just
Absolutely.
worry about yourself. That's it. That's
Absolutely.
all.
My thought goes to like the we don't have to include this, like the Planned Parenthood people. I'm like, wow, they really must want to see my ass in heaven or something. Like, why do you want it? Why do you care if that is your mythos and you're dead set on I'm going to hell? Why
Mm,
does my non-presence in heaven affect you?
right.
That's my thought.
Right.
Let me
And
worry about it.
because you know what it is? These people are so fucking extreme to the point where I literally just was watching YouTube the other night and something popped up into my feed where this, I guess, missionary, this man, felt it was his calling to go to this island out in the middle of bumfuck nowhere in the middle of the ocean to a tribe, like the last known tribe on this planet that still does not associate with civilization.
Wow.
Okay.
Wow.
He felt the need to go to this island to bring them to Jesus. And guess
Hmm.
what happened to him? They fucking killed him. So like
I've heard those. Like they ate him, the
so
last
what the fuck?
cannibalistic island. Like
And they gave him 3 chances to leave, and he kept coming back to bring
damn.
them to Jesus.
Oh my God. Good for
So
them.
my point being is that these people are so fucking extreme. They feel this calling, like they have a duty to fulfill. That's why, because they're mental.
And you know what? The people that surround them, that person is now a martyr. They were doing God's work, and look, they were punished for it. So now we have to work that much harder to bring everybody to Jesus.
Right. And
Yes.
yeah, and in his like he wrote like a last letter that I guess like got to his family or whatever, and he said he knew the dangers that he was walking into, and he said if this tribe kills me, don't blame them. It was my calling. And now his family is completely fine with this tribe just killing their son, and like
Okay.
they've moved on. And
Okay.
yeah, but basically you're right. Now he's a martyr, and now he's like being looked to as like he did God's work. And it's
Hmm.
like it's fucking scary. Like
Hmm.
people like this exist.
Yeah.
Just I know that's like a really extreme version of what we were just talking about, but like the point is like how the extremes that people will go to make sure that other people are living the same lives as they are.
And it's not even like,
Yeah.
oh, I'm doing this because I care about you. It's like, no, I'm doing this because my way is the best way and I know better. I know what's
Yes.
good for you. Bitch, you don't know me. Back the fuck
Exactly.
up.
Exactly.
Ah,
Anyway.
Hail Lilith.
Hey, Lilith. All right, so myth number 9. This says any vagina that has seen a lot of action is loose.
Oh shit.
And this the author says, okay, no, just no. A friggin' baby can fit through that thing and it'll go back to its original size and shape, or just about. Furthermore, slutty girls are educated, so those of us with vaginas know all about Kegel exercises to keep those muscles as toned as we may or may not choose to keep the rest of our bodies. I get it. The fact that I have dildos bigger than your penis intimidates you?
This author is savage.
She is sassafras. So, on a different note, Quote, loose doesn't mean bad and it doesn't mean promiscuous. People are built differently and sex can be pleasurable for all partners regardless of anatomy. In hetero relationships, I'm sure more girls put up with tiny weenies than than dudes put up with loose
I
vaginas. And
mean, she's not wrong.
she ain't wrong.
Ugh.
This conversation is it's too early for this.
It's really early on a Tuesday
It's
morning.
before this is usually a conversation you have at like 10 o'clock at night at a bar
Over
with your
wine.
girlfriends with a lot of alcohol.
We can repeat this anytime you want.
Oh my goodness. Myth number 10. Sluts have no morals. This goes back to sleeping with anyone. Everyone has standards and morals. Furthermore, having morals goes hand in hand with our feminist ideology. And yes, slutty women can be religious. Not all of us are, of course, but enjoying sex doesn't mean you can't also enjoy your relationship with God or any religion.
There is a song I highly recommend. I really want you to listen to it. I sent you this artist couple weeks ago. It was a different song. It was that double Toil and Trouble girl. Let me find her name really quick because she has this insanely beautiful song. Her name is Emily Scott Robinson, and the song is called If Trouble Comes Looking, and it tells a story of a woman in a marriage. She's already checked out. She's at this hotel. She goes down to the bar. She's having a glass of wine. If trouble comes looking, she won't be hard to find, basically. And then it starts talking about Brother John is on floor number 3. He's, praying to God, like, how was God so strong and a woman's lips never tempted him, something like that. He goes down to the bar. They meet up. They have an exchange. At the end of the song, you think something bad's going to happen, but it says more or less like not all transgressions end unhappily or some shit. And she gets a letter from this Brother John from that he's been to Paris, he's been to Spain, he's living his life, he's still loving God, but he is having his best life. So
Right.
you can be religious. Like, this song is amazing. Please go listen to this song. It's so good.
I just added it to our WMSR playlist.
Ooh,
So
I love her voice. Oh, I love her voice. It reminds me of Patty Griffin.
Oh, I love Patty Griffin.
I do too.
So myth number 11, sluts never feel fulfilled. We've all heard it, that people who sleep around are just looking to fill a void. That's true for some, as it can be with any activity, from religion to drinking, from art to drugs, from working out at the gym to working out in bed. For many, fulfillment comes from positive aspects in life. That can include a hobby, a family, a career, etc. And you know what? Maybe sex does fulfill some people. And if it does, good for you. I wouldn't say it fulfills me, but it sure makes me feel good. And feeling good helps me continue to reach for my goals and other aspects of life. When I'm getting laid, I'm more likely to be in a good mood at work and hit the gyms a few times a week.
There you go.
Myth number 12, being a slut is just a phase. We'll grow out of it. Finally, I know some people think being a slut is just a phase. Sure, for some of us, our party girl or player days will only last for a few years, but just because I might only fulfill the definition of a slut for a little while doesn't mean I won't be a slutty girl for the rest of my days. Forget the haters, the rumors, and the lies. Be a slutty girl. Do what you want. Not all of us go through a slut phase. Some of us do. It depends on the situation and the woman, and everybody has their own different lives.
It should not matter. Be safe and be smart.
Be safe, be smart. Exactly.
I'll have to tell my aunt that we're using her catchphrase. That should be
That's her
the tagline of our show. Yeah. Like, she never told us to behave. Go out doing stuff. She would always say, be safe, be smart.
Every adult has done stuff that we've done before we've done.
Exactly.
Right? So they know the deal. They know we're not behaving because they fucking didn't behave.
Totally.
Right?
Absolutely.
So they can't tell us to behave because, they have that guilty conscience.
Hypocrisy. Yeah.
Before we get into our next article, I thought it would be good to give a little context. In the first 2 parts to this episode, we mentioned the Scarlett Letter. I didn't know a whole too much about it other than a little bit about the premise. But for the sake of this episode and this final installment of our Slut series, I thought a little side quest was in order. So let's finally talk about the Scarlett Letter.
Awesome. Yeah.
First of all, I never even realized who wrote it.
Really?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. So Nathaniel fucking Hawthorne, all right? This family just keeps popping back up into all of our discussions, all the literature that we've been talking about, including Alice Hoffman, right? So just to recap, Nathaniel Hawthorne is the great-grandson of John Hathorne, the real-life historical figure who sent many accused witches, or quote witches, accused innocent people to the gallows during the 1692 Salem witch trials. Nathaniel, the author, had actually added the W to his last name to distance himself from his shithead murderer murderous uncle. And then Alice Hoffman actually fictionalized John Hathorne and turned him into Maria's lover and baby daddy in Magic Lessons, one of the installments in the Practical Magic series. And also Alice's most recent book, The Invisible Hour, which I still have not read yet, by the way. This book also has connections to the author Nathaniel Hawthorne and the Scarlet Letter.
I have a book recommendation that I cannot. It was so freaking good. It's called Hester, and it's by Lori Lico, I think.
Okay.
This book was amazing, and it's basically a fictionalized telling of the inspiration for his story. So this girl meets Nathaniel, XYZ stuff happens, and then later on, years later, the Scarlet Letter comes out, and she was the inspiration for the Scarlet Letter. This book is so good. Go read Hester.
Wait a minute. This sounds exactly like The Invisible Hour.
I know. That's why when you read it, let me know what you think about it, because
Okay.
I really enjoyed Hester. It's a
All right.
beautiful book because the main girl has synesthesia, and she
Oh.
sees and hears her words. The letters are all different colors and feelings and
Okay.
shapes. It's so cool.
Interesting. That's an interesting take on it. I'm wondering if Alice knows about that book, because obviously like that one came out much earlier, right? Because Alice's book is fairly new, within the
Right.
last year or two.
First edition 2022.
Okay.
It's really cool.
So they must have, okay, yeah, Alice's came out what, this past year?
Laurie Lico Albanese is her full name.
Yeah, this one's copyright 23. But I
Okay.
mean, who knows how long she's been writing this though, you know? So
That's
they could have
true.
been writing it at the same time, and just the collective subconscious, they were just like tapping into each other's
Yeah.
psyche, right?
I think my mom mentioned, because she did read it, I gave her my copy, that Invisible Hour has more to do with a little bit of time travel, where this
Mm,
other Hester book is specifically set during that era.
that in that time? Okay. All right. So there are differences. I mean, I haven't even read that, The Invisible Hour, yet. I can't wait to dig into that, but I think it'd be interesting to kind of like read that in tandem with the Scarlet Letter, and now this Hester book that you're telling me
Totally.
about.
Yeah.
It might be good to kind of like read all of them kind of like
Mm-hmm.
simultaneously, and try to find the parallels or similarities and
Oh my
differences.
God. I can see the red string right now.
That would be kind of that would be a project,
It would.
okay? But
Yes.
yeah,
Okay.
so much red string for sure.
Tell me about the Scarlet Letter.
So, before we get into the Scarlet Letter, I wanted to read the synopsis of The Invisible Hour via
Oh,
Goodreads.
okay.
This is the Invisible Hour by Alice Hoffman. So it says, one June day when Mia Jacob can no longer see a way to survive, the power of words saves her. The Scarlet Letter was written almost 200 years earlier, but it seems to tell the story of Mia's mother, Ivy,
Mm.
and their life inside the community, an oppressive cult in Western Massachusetts where contact with the outside world is forbidden. But how could this be? How could Nathaniel Hawthorne have so perfectly captured the pain and loss that Mia carries inside her? Through a journey of heartbreak, love, and time, Mia must abandon the rules she was raised with at the community. As she does, she realizes that reading can transport you to other worlds or bring them to you, and that readers and writers affect one another in mysterious ways. She learns that time is more fluid than she can imagine, and love is stronger than any chains that bind you. As a girl, Mia fell in love with a book. Now, as a young woman, she falls in love with a brilliant writer as she makes her way back in time.
Mm.
But what if Nathaniel Hawthorne never wrote the Scarlet Letter? And what if Mia Jacob never found it on the day she planned to die? I'm thinking the next two books for sure on my list are probably going to be the Scarlet Letter and the Invisible Hour, so I can read those. But
Great.
now I want to read that Hester book too. But anyway, now let's talk about the actual premise of the Scarlet Letter. So the Scarlet Letter is a romance work of historical fiction by American author Nathaniel Hawthorne, published in 1850, set in the Puritan Massachusetts Bay Colony during the 17th century, specifically the years 1642 to 1649. The novel tells the story of Hester Prynne, who conceives a daughter with a man to whom she is not married, and then struggles to create a new life of repentance and dignity. Hester Prynne had been married, but her long-lost husband, who was thought to have been lost at sea, and she never exposed the identity of the man involved in her affair, nor whether or not he was married.
Mm.
As punishment and a sign of shame, she must wear a scarlet letter, the letter A, which stands for adultery. She also has to stand on a scaffold for 3 hours as a form of public humiliation. Containing a number of religious and historic allusions, the book explores themes of legalism, sin, and guilt. According to mass.gov, which is a Massachusetts, I guess,
Government site.
government site, yeah, so it kind of like looks into the happenings of the occurrences in the book that
Oh.
Nathaniel Hawthorne wrote about, and they question, is this kind of punishment true to real life?
Hmm.
They say, we can't say for sure how they punish people for adultery as early as 1642. The earliest reference we have found is in a law passed in 1694 in the Charters and General Laws of the Colony and Province of Massachusetts Bay, published by order of the General Court in Boston, 1814. The 1694 Act is chapter 28, and it reads, quote, if any man be found in bed with another man's wife, the man and woman so offending, being thereof convicted, shall be severely whipped, not exceedingly 30 stripes. And if any man shall commit adultery, the man and woman that shall be convicted shall be set upon the gallows by the space of an hour with a rope about their neck, and the other end cast over the gallows, and in the way from thence to the common gall shall be severely whipped, not exceedingly 40 stripes each. Also, every person and person so offending shall forever after wear a capital A of 2 inches long and proportional bigness, cut out in cloth of a contrary color to their clothes, and sewn upon their upper garments on the outside of their arm or on their back in open view, end quote. So if they didn't wear the capital A, they would be publicly whipped, not exceeding 15 stripes. So it seems pretty accurate, I guess, for the
Interesting.
times, that Nathaniel, like, he didn't make this up. Like, it seems like this was really happening back then.
Okay. Wow.
So the government site also goes on to say in 1695, a similar punishment was prescribed for those convicted of cohabiting with someone to whom they were not legally married. Furthermore, persons convicted of incest after the requisite shaming and whipping had to wear the letter I on their clothing forever. We may speculate on how a Hester Prynne would have been treated under the conventions of colonial justice in the 1640s, but her punishment in Hawthorne's novel follows a very closely, if not exactly, the law passed in 1694, and that was written by Gary Smith. That predated the Salem witch trials, and it seems that adulterers got the same punishment as, quote, accused witches. So they were sent to the gallows. Apparently, it was punishable by death. The Scarlett Letter's parallels with some of the biblical references that we already chatted about in parts 1 and 2 of our Slut series. So the experience of Prynne and Arthur Dimmesdale, he's a Puritan minister. He has fathered an illegitimate child, Pearl, with Hester Prynne, and considers himself unable to reveal his sin. So she won't declare him the man that she adulterated with.
Okay.
Because of his stature. Okay, so going back to the biblical references. So the experience of Prynne and Dimmesdale recalls a story of Adam and Eve, because in both cases, sin results in expulsion and suffering, but it also results in knowledge, specifically in knowledge of what it means to be immoral. For Prynne, the Scarlet Letter is a physical manifestation of her sin and a reminder of her painful solitude. She contemplates casting it off to obtain her freedom from an oppressive society and a checkered past, as well as the absence of God. Because a society excludes her, she considers the possibility that many of the traditions upheld by the Puritan culture are untrue and are not designed to bring her happiness. Throughout the work, the nature images contrast with the stark darkness of the Puritans and their systems. A rosebush's beauty forms a striking contrast to all that surrounds it. Later, the beautifully embroidered Scarlet A is held out in part as an invitation to find, quote, some sweet moral blossom, end quote, in the ensuing tragic tale, and in part as an image that the deep heart of nature, perhaps God, may look more kindly on the errant Prynne and her child than her Puritan neighbors do. So some of the other allusions and historical and biblical references that appear in the Scarlet Letter are some of the following. So Anne Hutchinson is a character mentioned in chapter 1, The Prison Door, was a religious dissenter. In the 1630s, she was excommunicated by the Puritans and exiled from Boston and moved to Rhode Island. Anne Hibbins, who historically was executed for witchcraft in Boston in 1656, is depicted in the Scarlet Letter as a witch who tries to tempt prime to the practice of witchcraft.
Oh.
So I guess there's also some witchcraft involved in the Scarlet Letter. And it seems like some of these characters are based on real life historical figures or real accounts of things. Next, we have Richard Bellingham, who historically was the governor of Massachusetts and deputy governor at the time of Hibbins' execution, was depicted in the Scarlet Letter as the brother of Anne Hibbins. Then we have Martin Luther, who was a leader of the Protestant Reformation in Germany.
Like the Martin Luther.
Right, like not Martin Luther King Jr.
No, 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 no. Where Lutheranism
Oh, right.
comes from.
Where Lutheranism came from?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, I guess so. I don't know too much about Luther. Do you know a lot about
He
that?
nailed the Reformation to the door of the church. That's all I know.
Got it. Got it. Okay. Then we have Increase Mather, a powerful leader in the early Massachusetts Bay Colony. He was a Puritan minister involved with the government of the colony and also in the Salem witch trials.
So Hawthorne wrote about Mather, who essentially worked with Hawthorne's great grandfather.
Wasn't it Cotton Mather?
Oh, yeah. Increase was his kid? Yeah, his son. So Increase was the father of Cotton Mather.
Got it. Okay.
We're learning
Yeah.
so much in this show.
I know. And it's crazy how all these little threads are connected, right?
It's all connected.
And how they keep popping up. Also, we have Sir Thomas Overbury and Dr. Foreman, which were the subjects of an adultery scandal in 1615 in England. Dr. Foreman was charged with trying to poison his adulterous wife and her lover. Overbury was a friend of the lover and was perhaps poisoned. So much drama back in the day. Holy shit. Then we have John Winthrop, a second governor of the Massachusetts Bay Colony. King's Chapel Burying Ground, which is mentioned in the final paragraph, exists. The Elizabeth Payne gravestone is traditionally considered an inspiration for the protagonist's grave. And then we have the story of King David and
Bathsheba, like in The
Bathsheba?
Conjuring, the witch Bathsheba.
Okay. The story of King David and Bathsheba is depicted in the tapestry in Mr. Dimsdale's room in chapter 9. But see Samuel 11 through 12 for the biblical story. And then lastly we have John Eliot, who was a Puritan missionary to the American Indians, whom some called the apostle to the Indians. He is referred to as the Apostle Eliot, whom Dimsdale has gone to visit at the beginning of chapter 16, A Forest Walk. There seem to be a lot of maybe parallels with biblical stories, as well as some of these real life historical figures who Hawthorne wrote into his novel as fictional characters, kind of the way that Alice does with Hawthorne. It's kind of meta, right?
Yeah, he really did his research. He pulled those little strings all together.
Right.
Interesting.
Right.
I really got to read this book, man.
So now we're going to get into an article that you actually found this article. So why don't you take this one away? We're going to talk more about the Scarlet Letter.
Yeah, this is 166 years after the Scarlet Letter. Not much has changed in terms of slut shaming. So the classic novel you probably read in high school, except for if you're me or Justina, in English class. Or you may remember a reference in Easy A, the movie I have not seen either.
Is that with Emma Stone?
Yes.
I think I did see that a while ago, but I don't really remember the premise of it.
So it's nearly 166 years old. The book tells a story of Hester Prynne, who is essentially slut-shamed by her Puritan town for having a child out of wedlock. So what better way to celebrate this 166th year anniversary than seeing just how far we've really come? All right, so let's check out some quotes from the Scarlet Letter with recent news stories, and we're going to see for ourselves. This is going to go back then versus now. So back then, the quote is, "Let her cover their mark as she will. The pang of it will always be in her heart." And this is when Hester is first released from prison. And yeah, she went to prison for being pregnant out of wedlock. Some townsfolk were doubtful that the red A would shame her enough. But if the mark alone doesn't do the job, they were confident that the pang of regret will always haunt her.
Well, knowing what we know now about the information that we found on the Massachusetts government site, it seemed like she was actually let off pretty easy. I mean, she was jailed, but ultimately she wasn't hanged.
Right. And she had to stand on a pillar.
Yeah, it seems like, as horrible as that still is, it seemed like more of a slap on the wrist than like she was not sent to her death over it. Like it seemed like they were in real life.
And I don't know if she got lashed. Like, did she get whipped?
Yeah, I don't know.
So the little article they have attached now, this is a journalist asked a former adult performer, Sunny Leone, in 2016. They say, do you not sometimes get affected by the fact that your past will continue to haunt you? So in a recent interview, a reporter inundated Bollywood actress Sunny Leone with a slew of slut-shaming questions. Why? Leone was formerly a porn actress. And even though Leone had been clear that she has no regrets about her past, the reporter couldn't let it go. If I was to turn the clock back, would you still do what you did? The reporter asked Leone. The clear implication, despite her success, Leone should be haunted by her former profession, even though she doesn't think she has anything to be ashamed of. So the quote from Nathaniel Hawthorne, then it says, "Hold thy peace, dear little Pearl," which is the daughter's name, the baby's name. "We must not always talk in the marketplace of what happens to us in the forest." Ooh, that's fucking sinister. So
Yeah,
towards
dark.
the end of the Scarlet Letter, Hester and her daughter Pearl sneak off to the forest and meet with Pearl's father. And this says, we won't spoil it for you, but it's a shocker. There, they're free, and Hester even briefly sheds the Scarlet Letter of her shame. But when they're forced to return to the village, Hester has to shush her daughter from speaking of the incident. All sexual matters were private. And for Hester, losing that privacy could be disastrous. And now, in relation to that, this says, a quote, "I think we have a right to privacy, but when we take inappropriate information or pictures, we had best make sure it remains private." So for Hester, the biggest threat to her privacy was her loose-lipped daughter. Nowadays, there are hackers to worry about, from celebrity nude photos leaked to revenge porn sites. No one is safe from having the details of their private sex lives exposed. This was made clear back in March when a student stole teacher Leah Ann Arthur's phone and posted a naked photo of Arthur on social media. As a result, Arthur herself was rebuked for leaving her phone out in full view of the students. I'm going to take a deep breath. Yikes. That is fucked up. She's being, okay. Why, according to the district intern superintendent, she didn't do her job to make sure it remained private, reflecting the view that when female sexuality becomes public, the woman is usually at fault, even if without her consent.
That's fucked.
Yeah.
We talk a little bit more about this later on when we talk about some celebrities that this happened to. It happens more than you even know.
Unbelievable.
It is unbelievable.
Back then, this quote says from Nathaniel Hawthorne, 1850, "Some attribute had departed from her, the permanence of which had been essential to keep her a woman." So after Hester commits adultery, she doesn't even receive the label of a woman anymore. In the view of the public, Hawthorne writes that her sexuality overrides her personhood because a true woman can't possibly be overly sexual. And then this says, the quote is, "Too hot to teach. Now expressing your sexuality doesn't quite remove your qualifications to be considered a human being, but it can disqualify you from assuming other roles." And yet another story of a teacher being slut-shamed. 21-year-old teaching assistant Gemma Laird reported losing her job after photos surfaced of her modeling underwear. One headline, Kate Middleton still gets shit for her modeling gig in that see-through dress with the underwear underneath it.
Seriously?
Unreal. Let me continue. So, she reported losing her job after these photos surfaced of her modeling underwear. One headline from the British newspaper The Sun summarized the incident thusly. Laird was simply, quote, "too hot to teach because somehow, if a woman is sexual, she can't possibly be anything else at the same time. And she certainly can't be a teacher." This quote back then, Nathaniel Hawthorne, "This woman has brought shame upon us all and ought to die. Is there not law for it? Truly, there is, in the scripture." When Hester is sentenced to wear the Scarlet Letter, some of the townspeople don't think her punishment is severe enough. What punishment would be appropriate? Death. And while it may be easy enough to laugh off fictional Puritans from 166 years ago, the modern-day equivalent of this opinion is anything but amusing. So now, the quote, "You're trash. Women who walk around in short dresses, as you did, deserve to be raped or killed by stoning, as stipulated in the scriptures." Andrea Noel, a journalist based in Mexico City, was recently harassed on the streets when a man ran up to her and pulled down her underwear. Hoping to identify and punish the man, Noel shared a video of the incident on Twitter, but instead of helping identify her attacker, many people instead attacked Noel herself. What they did, you deserve for being a woman, a bitch, a slut, that any man can take as he pleases. One person wrote, and oh my God, people are fucking awful. One person wrote in a Twitter direct message. When Noel started publishing these tweets, people responded with death threats.
Are you kidding me?
That's insane. All right. Back then, Nathaniel Hawthorne, this is a quote, "A pure hand needs no glove to cover it." This quote was actually about Hester's lover after someone discovering his role in the affair. Of course, even once discovered, the man faces no public shaming for his acts. Oh, the slut-shaming double standard.
And the fact that he was a, quote, holy man, and he still got no shit for it.
Right.
Fuck you, dude.
Just
Fuck
like that
you.
Chick-fil-A story I had to tell you a couple weeks ago.
Oh, shit. That's right.
We'll just leave that there. Go Google it, guys. Google Lancaster County, South Carolina, Chick-fil-A.
So fucked.
In relation to that now, the quote is, "I wouldn't call Kim's body confidence. I'd call it self-exploitation. The purity double standard is still alive and well today. Just look at it when Kim Kardashian West posted her recent nude selfie on Twitter. Perez Hilton was one of many to shame her for showing her body, calling it self-exploitation. What he conveniently forgot to mention, he posted several naked photos as well."
Dude, he's a fucking twat.
He is.
I mean, I've called Kim Kardashian a twat in the past, but for different reasons.
Right. Yeah.
Not for being, body positive or, a slut in her own right, but like more so just because she's like an opportunist and she'll make money any low down way she can.
Yeah,
and I'm not even talking about her sex tape. I'm talking to just like stupid stuff. That stupid app that she created. Like,
right. Personally, I would love if none of their shit came up on my feed. But it's because I'm jealous. I want that money. I wish it was that easy for some of us, right?
I know. They can just like walk outside and somebody will throw money at them. And I'm just like, what? Tell me how. Tell me
how. Tell me how. Teach me your ways.
I think that's what it is. I think they are so hated because their lifestyle is so coveted. Of course, like everybody wants that life and they have it and nobody else does. So that's why everyone hates them.
Okay. Nathaniel Hawthorne, 1850. In all her intercourse with society, however, there was nothing that made her feel as if she belonged to it, like a ghost that revisits the familiar fireside and can no longer make itself seen or felt. One of them, not feeling like you are seen or felt as yourself. Society has already decided who you are, and your true identity holds as much power as a ghost. Whatever Hester did after her affair didn't matter because society had already decided who she was. Now, quote, "Women are tweeting their cleavage in solidarity." It says when Susan Sarandon wore a low-cut blazer to the Screen Actors Guild Awards in January, she was reportedly critiqued for showing off her cleavage. The loudest critique, Pierce Morgan, who called her outfit horribly inappropriate.
Oh, fuck him.
Yeah, fuck that guy. But Sarandon didn't go undefended. The hashtag CleavageGate took off on Twitter, with women posting photos of their own cleavage in solidarity. If nothing else has changed in the past 166 years, today's connected world has made it easier than ever to find supporters in the face of slut-shaming. And while Hester Prynne had a few supporters, we have all of Twitter to get our backs.
There you go. All right, so we're going to get into some TV tropes, and this is from tvtropes.org. So this quote is from The Golden Girls, and Dorothy says...
I'll be Blanche.
Okay. She was always my favorite one, I have to say.
Yeah.
She was always so spicy, and I'm like, I want to be a Blanche. So Dorothy says, "Rose, what do you call a girl who slept with a man she's known for less than one day?"
A damn good sport.
And Dorothy goes, "I call her a tramp." Well, damn, Dorothy.
Damn, Dorothy.
Damn, Dorothy, you savage. So, slut shaming is the act of making someone feel bad for their promiscuity by linking higher promiscuity, oh my God! By linking higher promiscuity with lower worth as a human being. Slut shaming is directed against women far more than against men, which we've talked about, not least because of the cultural perception that sex is something men do to women. Thus, one 19th/20th century Sino-European double standard holds that a man who has sex is, quote, just being a man, whereas a woman who has sex is defiled forever, a font of moral corruption who will make the people around her lazy hedonists. Yet, the men are often free to admire or even have sex with the, quote, sluts, while despising them at the same time. I'm sorry, you can't have your cake and eat it too. Like, fuck you. An alternative view, extant since the 19th century, is that because men are sometimes seen as innately slutty, calling one a slut doesn't mean much.
Zeus. What's the guy's name from The Craft?
Oh, Chris Hooker.
Chris Hooker!
His last name's Hooker.
He's a slut.
He's the biggest slut of all of them.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and I think we talk about that a little later on, the craft, right? Okay. So although the slut stereotype is not commonly applied to men, at least straight men, stereotypes, stigma associated with women are often also applied to men who have sex with men. That is not to say that it cannot or does not directly harm them as well. For example, if men are always willing to have sex, then a man can't be sexually assaulted because how could he not want it? Or, quote, he must be gay if the rapist is a man.
Did you hear in this recent news? This is triggered again. We've talked about the R word. This woman was going to be raped by this man, and this gay man comes across this. He starts raping the guy,
Shut up.
and she got away.
Oh
And people
my
are
God.
like, "Yes, queen,
Karma.
karma, baby, instant karma."
Instant karma. So, indeed, a man who is shamed for sexual promiscuity is more likely to be painted as a predator than as a slut. So higher promiscuity is extremely relative from one society to another, and often from one person to another, depending on age, race, class, etc. What you wear, how you act, what you do, whom you do, all of them can be ammunition against you. Usually, the basis of the accusations or allegations of sluttiness are the following. Number one, thinking or discussing sexual matters, having sexual desires, owning or using, quote, sexy things like clothing. Note, as this may encourage sexual thoughts or desires. Appearing in the nude or enjoying nudity. Note, one should only be naked when it's really necessary. Having physical characteristics that members of the opposite sex find appealing. That's called defrauding, being a stumbling block, or putting others in an occasion of sin, inspiring lust in others. Never mind that one can't help how they develop. The next one is masturbating, choosing inappropriate sexual partners, doing it. Basically anything, right? These next ones don't count as long as you only do them with your wife or husband. Having sex. Though in some circles, it might be considered shameful even in the context of marriage if you enjoy it, or have it for reasons other than procreation or, quote, spousal duty.
Oh, I hate that.
Yeah. Being or getting someone pregnant. However, after having 2 to 4 kids, both the husband and wife should outgrow sexual intimacy. The characters will heroically engage in slut shaming in the works that play the "my girl is not a slut" trope straight, whereas slut shaming will be played unsympathetically in works that insist promiscuity is good and say "my girl is a slut."
I
What?
think that "my girl is a slut" is another trope
Okay.
that I didn't want to get into.
Okay, yeah, I'm sure this is a rabbit hole in and of itself. So, this attitude can especially get nasty when it overlaps with cases of sexual assault, frequently overlapping with blaming the victim or defiled forever, which are other tropes. It often manifests as people claiming a victim had it coming or that they weren't really assaulted because they have lots of consensual sexual partners or they were dressed in a certain way, and so on, sadly. It's truth in television that victims of sexual assault may be disbelieved or the gravity of the crime gets downplayed because of their sexual history. Those who engage in slut shaming doubt the existence of the trope of the ethical slut and often are portrayed as the trope of the moral guardians who insist the trope of sex is evil, sensible heroes, skimpy villains is a form of sister trope. So characters who are troped as the sour prudes and or have a case of the trope of sex is evil or I am horny are likely to engage in slut-shaming behavior. Compare the trope of all men are perverts and the trope of all women are lustful, which, when applied judgmentally, can be considered a society wide form of slut shaming leveled against an entire gender. It may play a role in a character deciding to blame the paramour trope if they get cheated on, particularly if it's a man cheating on his wife or girlfriend with another woman. Contrast the trope of virgin shaming, which is when a character is ridiculed for being a virgin instead of for not being one. However, the two tropes can overlap in defiance of all logic and reason. This is,
I
yeah.
really recommend this site. So we talked about, go to the first installment of this series where we talked about the historical figure, Jezebel. But there was a few different takes on this story. But I think the most famous one, Justina, you'll tell us about this, was a Betty Davis movie from the 1930s entitled
Okay.
Jezebel.
Right. So if you're interested in this story, you can check out the 1938 depiction, like Christina said, starring Betty Davis as Julie in the film Jezebel. So the premise. In 1852 New Orleans, spoiled, strong-willed belle Julie Marsden is engaged to banker Preston Prez Dillard.
Prez Dillard.
That's such like a
Like a
friggin'
haughty name.
yeah, Preston.
Preston Dillard Esquire the Fifth.
Definitely has a bit of a chatty kind of ring to it. He's definitely a Chad.
Talking. Chad. You said
Yeah.
chatty with
I
T's,
meant
but you
I
said
meant
Chad.
I meant chatty like DD, double
I
D.
love that. That's so funny.
Chatty. He's quite
Mm-hmm.
chatty.
Mm-hmm.
So in an important meeting, Prez is trying to convince the board to invest in railroads, as Northerners are doing, and supporting Dr. Livingston's plea for measures to prevent another outbreak of yellow fever. Again, if they remade this film, Jezebel, Preston would be played by fucking Billy Zane, because that's freaking Cal in
Yes.
Titan.
Yes.
Is he also not a bit chatty?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So he tries to convince the board to invest in railroads, as Northerners are doing, and supporting Dr. Livingston's plea for measures to prevent another outbreak of yellow fever. In retaliation for Prez refusing to leave the meeting to accompany her to the last fitting for her ball gown, Julie buys a brazen red satin dress ordered by a notorious woman. Unmarried women are expected to wear virginal white at the Olympus Ball. It's the most important social event of the year. All of Julie's friends are horrified, but no one can dissuade her. At the Olympus Ball, Julie's attire is met with shock and disgust by all present. She begs Prez to take her away, but instead he forces her to dance with him while all the other couples leave the floor. When the orchestra stops playing at the instruction of one of the ball's sponsors, Prez tells the conductor to continue. Prez and Julie finish the dance.
Oh, okay. So is he a good guy? Is Prez a good guy, or is he putting
I
her on display to shame her for her choices?
I think it might be a little bit of that Scarlett Letter situation.
Mm.
I
Mm.
think he might be, maybe, yeah. I don't know. It doesn't really say what his motives are
Keep going.
here.
Keep
I
going.
think we would have to watch to see the body language and like to see how it was acted and played out. So Prez later leaves Julie, implicitly breaking their engagement. All right, so
He's
we see
nice.
his motives here. So in a final act of spite, Julie slaps him in the face. Aunt Belle Massey urges her to pursue him, but she refuses, stating that he will return to her. Instead, he goes north on business, and Julie secludes herself at home and refuses to see visitors. A year later, Press finally returns, bringing his northern wife Amy to a homecoming party in her honor. He got married? What the fuck?
Amy.
Who the fuck is Amy? So he brings this bitch to a homecoming party in honor of at Hallison Plantation, Julie's estate. So he brings his new wife to Julie's estate.
Wow.
Imagine your ex bringing his new biddy to your
Or
function, to your
party.
party.
Ooh,
Fuck
no.
that be. Fuck that.
Mm. Mm.
Oh, it gets me so heated. So Aunt Belle cannot find Julie in time to warn her. Before Prez can stop her, Julie, wearing a luminous white gown, humbles herself and begs for his forgiveness and return of his. No, bitch, why are you
Don't
doing
do
that?
that, Julie.
You don't need
Don't
you
do.
don't need to do that for this guy.
Oh,
This fucking
Julie.
Chad.
Julie.
Julie, come on now. You're better than that. So Press then introduces her to Amy. The fucking nerve. The nerve.
The fucking balls on this guy.
Fucking balls. So Julie prods her longtime admirer, skilled duelist Buck Cantrell, to quarrel with Prez,
Oh.
but the scheme goes awry. Prez's inexperienced brother Ted, who's this fucking guy now? Ted, who's this Ted? He's goaded into challenging Buck, but Ted kills Buck. Holy shit!
No, Buck.
Oh no!
Oh
I thought
no.
Buck was gonna save the day. I
Oh.
thought Buck was gonna be like the guy that like takes the damsel in distress off the railroad tracks and
I thought Buck was like the bestie at her
okay.
beck and call. He's kind of friend zoned.
Okay. But
But
okay, so
okay, yeah.
this Ted brother kills him. So, as Dr. Livingstone had foretold, a deadly epidemic sweeps through the city. The people fight it with cannon and smoke and believe that yellow fever is highly contagious, a quarantine so rigid that people who try to escape the city are shot. That sounds a lot like the pandemic when it started in like China and shit. Were you seeing like how they were treating their civilians who tried to
No.
leave their houses? It was freaking horrible. Yeah. So in New Orleans, Press is stricken and is to be quarantined in the leper colony
That's right.
on Lazaret Island. Julie goes to Dr. Livingstone's house and nurses Press for a day and a night. She is giving this dude way too much love than he deserves, in my opinion. So the family arrives, having been granted a pass from the governor. When the wagon comes for Press, Amy begs to accompany him, but Julie tells her that she is not equipped to fight for Press. Amy does not know the Creole words for food and water or how to deal with the conditions or the people there. Julie begs to go in her place and try to redeem herself. Before agreeing, Amy asks if Press still loves Julie. Julie declares that he loves only his wife. Amy blesses them, and Julie accompanies Press on a wagon loaded with other victims and caregivers.
But what happens?
Is that how it ends?
I don't know. That I'm curious as to why they chose that name for this movie.
Yeah.
I'm intrigued. I
am intrigued. I want to know, like, did Press go back to Julie?
So this trope, we're going to stick with tropes a little longer. The horror trope of the slut, like the slut tends to die in all the horror movies.
True.
Right?
Yeah.
This is from two different sources, so slutever.com and the denofgeek.com. So this says, the horror genre's troubling trope. Have you ever noticed that in pretty much every horror movie ever made, the slut is always the first to get stabbed or eaten by zombies? Why is that?
Yeah.
Yeah. So, the horror genre, with its rich history of portraying women in stereotypical roles, has experienced significant transformations over the years. A thorough examination of the evolution of women in horror films requires a deep dive into traditional tropes and an analysis of how recent movies either challenge or perpetuate these stereotypes. Traditionally, horror films have often depicted female characters labeled as sluts meeting their gruesome ends. This trope, exemplified by classics like Halloween in 1978 and Friday the 13th in 1980, intertwines sexuality with violence, portraying women who embrace their sexuality as targets for brutal deaths. The question arises, is this trope a reflection of societal attitudes towards women who assert their sexuality, or is it merely a formulaic element in the genre? In her influential work, Men, Women, and Chainsaws in 1992, Carol Clover argues that the slasher film, despite its crudeness, offers insight into prevailing sexual attitudes. The genre often portrays heterosexual masculinity, merging sex and violence without raising eyebrows. However, when women assert their sexuality overtly, the audience becomes voyeurs, watching and reveling in their eventual downfall.
You know what I would like to see? I would love to see a horror film where the script is flipped, so like all the virgins die and all the sluts reign supreme, right?
Yeah, sure.
Love it.
In recent films like Cabin in the Woods, that's a good movie. In 2012, and Jennifer's Body, we spoke a little bit about last time, in 2009, seek to complicate the traditional slut stereotype. In these films, women are coerced into the slut role through government interference or ritual sacrifice. Directors aim to highlight the absurdity of the trope, questioning its validity in contemporary horror storytelling. This movie, It Follows, in 2015, makes a murkier approach intertwining sex with survival. The protagonist, Jay, navigates a supernatural curse where sex becomes necessary evil for survival. This film challenges the traditional slut trope by presenting a nuanced connection between sexuality and horror that goes beyond mere victimization. The horror genre often features the dismemberment of the female body, perpetuating other troubling motifs. Films like The Texas Chainsaw Massacre in 1974 and Hostel in 2005 fragment women into pieces, erasing their individuality.
I hate those kinds of movies.
I do too.
I don't like dismemberment. It just no.
Even, do you remember American Horror Story, the sideshow?
Yeah.
When Jessica Lange's character, you see how she lost her legs. I was out. After that scene, I was out.
I don't remember
It was
that.
part of some like German torture porn ring.
Oh, I vaguely remember that.
I was like, no, I'm done. I'm done. Carol J. Adams in The Pornography of Meat in 2003 discusses how the fragmentation links to meat and pornography, reducing women to sexualized body parts. Torture porn is a subset of horror, explores extreme violence with roots tracing back to Alfred Hitchcock's Psycho in 1960. Janet Leigh's character's voyeuristic murder sets the tone, emphasizing the link between nudity, violence, and the phallic symbolism of the knife. The genre has evolved, but the portrayal of women as objects of violence remains a pervasive theme. Carol J. Clover introduced the concept of the final girl, and an androgynous, morally responsible woman who survives the killer's pursuit.
Sydney.
Sydney.
Sydney. You know your mom's no Sharon Stone, Sydney.
Okay, I want your opinion on Matthew Lillard. I think he's cute.
By the way, Matthew fucking Lillard was in season 3, the reboot of Twin Peaks. Did you see that? Did you see him in
Oh,
that?
I did. I remember him in that.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, yeah, yeah.
he's a handsome older man too. He's aging very nicely.
He's not my type, but he's like that goofy kind of like
Yes.
guy that like you would have been
Yes.
friends with growing up, you know?
Yes.
Yeah.
Maybe have like made out with once or
Yeah, yeah.
twice.
Okay.
But that's it.
Yeah, yeah.
The perspective challenges Laura Mulvey's male gaze theory suggests that the male spectators identify with the final girl as a symbol of castration anxiety. While the final girl trope persists, recent films like The Cabin in the Woods and It Follows subvert and redefine this concept. Exploring the history of the slasher film reveals patterns that align with societal shifts. The emergence of the genre, influenced by films like Psycho in 1960, coincide with the women's liberation movement. Backlash against progressive ideologies may have manifested in the portrayal of sexually liberated women facing brutal deaths on screen. The silent majority and the new right possibly influenced filmmakers, reflecting societal discomfort with the changing norms. Recent films challenge outdated tropes, but skepticism remains about true progress. Lynn Bond suggests looking beyond Hollywood for diverse perspectives, citing Canadian filmmaker David Cronenberg and Mexican filmmaker Guillermo del Toro. While changes are visible, there needs to be a deeper cultural shift to break free from sexist-stated tropes in horror films. The evolution of women in horror films reflects broader societal changes and challenges traditional stereotypes. From the slut trope to dismemberment and torture, the genre has grappled with complex issues. Recent films demonstrate a willingness to challenge and subvert these tropes, offering hope to a more nuanced and inclusive portrayal of women in the horror genre. As audiences demand diverse narratives, the future of horror cinema holds the potential for further exploration and dismantling of harmful stereotypes. Filmmakers have the opportunity to redefine the role of women in horror, moving beyond cliches and presenting complex, empowered characters. The evolution of the horror genre mirrors societal shifts, and with continued efforts toward inclusivity and awareness, the portrayal of women in horror films can contribute to a more equitable and diverse cinematic landscape.
So let's talk about Hollywood women in charge of their sexuality and agency. So one of the first movies that kind of do this is Mamma Mia. So the film adaptation of the extremely popular musical is a multiverse of all things female. It has a younger man chasing an older woman dynamic. It has a mother raising her daughter single-handedly into an independent and strong lady. And it subverts the idea of a traditional family. From Donna, who has had three lovers, out of whom anyone could be her daughter Sophie's father, to Sophie, who chooses her mother to walk her down the aisle. The movie depicts female bonds in all their glory and portrays women who take up the mantle in their own life, be it about love, marriage, or more.
And I love this. I love both movies. The second one will definitely make you cry. It's like a flashback when Donna is younger, but it's just how she meets these guys. And her whole thing is like, the world is wide and I want to see it. And like these men who come along the way, it's not anything super serious. And I
Right.
love that.
I think society takes ourselves way too seriously. We're only here for a short amount of time. Who the fuck cares? Live your best life. The next one we're going to talk about is Chocolat.
Chocolat.
Like we've touched about this movie many times before. Not really relating to slut shaming, but like
In our
definitely
chocolate episode.
this movie always comes up. Yeah, a chocolate episode for sure. So Vienne, played by Juliette Binoche, is a chocolatier and a single mother traveling to distant places to sell her scrumptious treats and keeping the tradition of her ancestors alive. She reaches a conservative French village of Catholics where indulging in pleasures of eating chocolate is a deadly sin, especially since they arrive there during Lent, right?
Yeah. Opportune time.
Exactly. Chocolate is the object as well as the metaphor that earns Vienne her outsider status. The film portrays an independent woman at a time when it was considered not just rare, but dangerous for a woman to earn for herself. She's a free spirit with an open mind and heart who can decide where she wants to travel or settle and also decide whom she wants to sleep with. Johnny Depp. Her agency in every aspect of her life as a businesswoman, a mother, and a woman make her story a must watch.
And she
I
also
always
kind of gets the Scarlet Letter treatment. She shows up with a kid. Everybody's like, well, who's the dad? And she's like, doesn't fucking matter. And they're like, well, we'll see you at church. And she's like, no.
right. And I also love what was the Comtes or whatever, the Alfred Molina,
Oh, Alfred Molina.
when he finally gives into that temptation,
Oh,
right?
he's just slathered in
And
chocolate.
he just like eats all the fucking chocolate in the display window, and the whole town sees him kind of
Mm-hmm.
fall from grace, right?
Mm-hmm.
And
Really
that was
good.
like the best friggin' karma moment.
And her friend, the girl, I don't remember her name. Jeannie, I don't remember the woman's name, who's abused in her marriage and
Right.
then leaves the man, and she ends up finding herself and being comfortable dressing in clothes that she likes, and she feels beautiful. And I think, her husband, the slut slur is thrown around a lot when she decides to just be who she wants to be on her own.
That is more of a female empowering movie than initially you think. It seems like a whimsical movie about
Right,
chocolate, but really there's
right.
so many other like feminist undertones than we, maybe pick up right off the bat.
Totally.
So, Sex in the City, we all know Sex in the City, a journalist in New York played, Carrie Bradshaw is played by Sarah Jessica Parker. She's with her girlfriends and makes up for a seemingly typical rom-com. This is about the film, I guess. I love the show. Again, the show made me self-aware as a woman coming into my own sexuality growing up, and like I just loved everything that this show stood for. The men in this show and the film are kind of like women's playthings. Like they don't take themselves too seriously, and
Yeah.
it's
Miranda? What's her name?
Miranda.
Steve. Poor Steve. He deserves so much better.
But he did cheat on her. The film takes a plunge into the complexities of these women's lives. It turns it into an adventure. Four women in their 40s refuse to let their sexual desires be dictated by someone else. These women are not afraid to show that they are sexual beings too, and that they work, dress, and live for themselves. And it's funny that this says 40s because I guess that's when the movies came out, when the girls were entering their 40s. But I started watching it when the girls were in their 30s.
Yeah.
But I was in my early 20s, maybe late teens, early 20s. So to see like what laid ahead or lied ahead for me as a woman, like seeing all the shit that they went through in their 30s, and
Hmm.
like when I was in my 30s, it's crazy. Like I just exited my 30s, but it's so funny to me watching the show back now because they were in their 30s in the show, and I'm like, holy shit,
Right.
I'm older now than
They
than
were
they
then.
were then when I started watching the show, and that's crazy to me.
I remember when I could catch, like, when my parents weren't home and it was on because I was younger. I wasn't allowed to watch that stuff. But I remember thinking, like, oh my God, women can talk like this so openly about this stuff. Why can't more people just talk openly about this stuff?
I think this show made it okay for women to openly talk about that stuff. It opened the
Nice.
doors, I feel like.
Yeah.
So speaking of Sex in the City, I just wanted to touch back on the episode that I was talking about in one of the previous parts to our slut series.
Okay.
The title of the episode, if anybody wants to go watch it, it's called Are We Sluts? And it's season 3, episode 6
Oh
for all
God.
of
Okay.
HBO Max subscribers. So sometimes I'll just like put on old episodes. I've seen every single episode over a million times. So I just put it on in the background just to like, keep me company or whatever. But this episode is the most hysterical episode. And here's the synopsis. So, Carrie wants to sleep with Aiden, but he's reluctant to rush into a physical relationship. So, kind of flipping the script, like the guy wants to wait to have
Mm-hmm.
sex, right?
Mm-hmm.
Miranda
Miranda?
discovers she has chlamydia and has to inform her past sexual partners. I told you about that scene in the previous episode, right? Charlotte's new boyfriend calls her names during sex. And then Samantha's neighbors disapprove of her sex life after a late night visitor lets in a burglar because she
Oh.
lives in this apartment building, right?
Oh
So I guess she brought home one of her lovers one night and like
no. He let someone in.
a burglar snuck in behind her and then like robbed a lady's apartment, and the lady I guess like had a black eye or got beat up or whatever, and they all like basically gave Samantha the Scarlet Letter. They were all
Wow.
slut shaming her and they're like, it's your fault that I'm like this or whatever.
What does Charlotte's boyfriend call her?
Okay, so this is the funniest. So, just to elaborate on the situation with Charlotte's boyfriend in this episode, in every episode, in the earlier on seasons anyway, every episode was like a different guy. Like, all the girls had different boyfriends in like most of the episodes until like season 3, then longer monogamous relationships started coming into play.
Okay.
We have Aiden for Carrie and like Steve with Miranda. And then I think maybe I forget what season it was, but we have do you remember Jerry Jared, Samantha's boyfriend, the model?
Yes. Yes.
He
Yeah,
was like,
I remember
he
him.
was a thing for a while.
Jerry Jared.
Yeah. So Charlotte has this boyfriend, and during sex, when he climaxes, he screams, "You fucking bitch, you fucking whore."
Oh, damn.
And she is so like distraught over him calling her this. But like the thing is, after he climaxes, he has no recollection that he even calls her those things.
What the fuck?
Yeah, he I guess he's like so in the moment, he like doesn't even realize that he calls her those things,
And
but
she's
she's
like the goody
so
good one too. Like that's
yeah,
not her thing.
right, yeah. So she's like very like even though Charlotte is that trope, the slut in the bed, but a lady on the streets,
Hmm.
she does not like being called those things. And eventually she ends the relationship with him, but like
Okay.
yeah, so the whole episode he's like, "You fucking bitch, you fucking whore." And she's just like, "No, not
Oh
about it."
no.
But yeah, it's so ridiculous some of the situations that they get into with some of these weirdo
Yeah.
guys. And it's
Yeah.
crazy. Like there's so many weirdos out there.
Yeah. And they're in New York. So they're all
Right.
condensed right there.
Right. Exactly.
But men are weird all over the
Men are,
world.
men are fucking strange. But I love that freaking show. I'll watch it all day, every day. I could put on every single episode and just like be completely cool with any episode.
Hmm.
They're all great.
Yeah, you can kind of start anywhere.
Right, yeah. I love it. I freaking love that show. So next up we have Blanche Devereaux from the Golden Girls. So Blanche is the quote slut of her friend group, and though she's often teased for it, she doesn't let it stop her from doing her thing. Every lady from the Golden Girls is basically an honorary slut. They really show how wonderful female friendships can be all stages of life. And maybe the Golden Girls was even maybe a precursor to Sex in the City for our generation, right?
Totally. Yeah.
It's interesting how it depicts it from an older woman's like a crone aged woman's perspective. And I feel like as women, we need to see all those stages portrayed. The next up we have Bridget Jones from Bridget Jones's Diary. So Bridget Jones is not perfect. In fact, she's pretty average, but she still has her way with a number of handsome men and eventually winds up with Mr. Right. Or does she? So her struggle to get everything quote right in life is pretty accurate for many women out there, and she definitely feels that single struggle. Both the book and the movie versions of Bridget Jones show us that what we need from friends, family, and lovers is to be loved for ourselves just the way that we are. We have Evelyn Hugo from The Seven Husbands of Evelyn Hugo. So a recent realize The Seven Husbands of Evelyn Hugo plays on old school Hollywood drama and definitions of beauty, including race and sexuality. Evelyn goes from being a poor girl in New York to a silver screen queen. All of her relationships are complex, interesting, and important, and her friends and lovers make up a diverse, representative cast of characters. People think that intimacy is about sex, but intimacy is about truth. When you realize you can tell someone your truth, when you can show yourself to them, when you stand in front of them bare and their response is, "You're safe with me," that's intimacy.
Oh, I like that. This is on my to read list.
Yeah.
I heard it got amazing
Yeah, I've seen a lot of
reviews.
this since like all over social media, and it
Hmm.
piqued my interest for sure. Next is Fair Archeron from A Court of Thorns and Roses. I've never heard of this. Is this a book? Oh, you have. Oh, did you put this one on the list?
I did not, but Caitlin for Christmas sent me the first two books. I don't know how many there are, but
Uh-huh.
this is everywhere. This is
Okay.
fucking everywhere.
I've
And
never seen it.
I think I'm gonna start this next after I'm done with what I'm reading.
Is that also a spicy romance novel? Oh.
Yes. All I know, like Caitlin hasn't told me much, and I kind of know the names just from like TikTok popping it up on Book Talk. Caitlin was like, "Why would you do that with paint?" Now I'm intrigued. I'm like, I'm sorry, where is that?
What?
What?
Okay, so Fair, I think I'm saying, I don't know if I'm saying that right. Fair
Sorry.
Archeron, the character. So Fair and her friends are sex positive, and the erotic fantasy scenes are to die for. Furthermore, Fair's love life and the love lives of her friends truly show that it's possible to fall in love many times in life, to have multiple partners, and to have one person who is, quote, right for you, whether you end up with them or not. And sometimes the person who is right for you might not even be the person you love most in your life. No one was my master, but I might be a master of everything if I wished, if I dared.
Ooh, I like that.
The next one is Olive Pendergast from Easy A, which I guess is the character that is portrayed by Emma Stone. So Olive's story is so fun. It plays on slut shaming, showing that it's all about perception and societal beliefs. In the end, Olive comes to some realizations. She realizes that she does care what people think about her, but only what people she cares about think about her. The snotty, judgmental girl in class, some guy who only wants to get in her pants, their opinions are bullshit. Easy A also shows that even sluts don't want to be treated like a piece of meat. No one does, whether or not they vocally enjoy sex and whether or not they're doing so for pretend. And then we have Betty Rizzo from Greece.
Aunt
Hickey's
Franny!
and Franny. Hickey's pregnancy scares and more. Sure, Rizzo judges Sandra Dee for being a prude, but other than that, she's pretty amazing. And when men make inappropriate comments to her, ain't nobody got time for that.
Yeah.
This author says, I also love her awkward love-hate relationship towards her hookup. It's a struggle so many slutty girls can relate to.
There are worse things I could do. She's so good.
You want to tell us about some A-listers who have opened up about being slut-shamed?
Sure. We have Miley Cyrus, and this is actually one of her Twitter posts. This post, it says, number one, she writes, number one, I know the public feels invested in my past relationships because they felt they saw it through from the beginning. I think that's why people have always felt so entitled over my life and how I live it, because they watch me grow up. But I'm a grown woman. I wish I could do her voice. How do
Yeah,
you...
very
It's all
distinct.
about the journey. I don't know. But I am a grown up now and make choices that no. As an adult, knowing the truth, details, and reality, people only, quote, know what they see on the internet. Number two, men, especially successful ones, are rarely slut shamed. They move on from one beautiful young woman to the next, most times without consequence. They are usually referred to as, quote, legends, heartthrobs, G, ladies' man, etc., where women are called sluts and whores. I am trying to just survive in a man's world. If we can't beat him, join him. If our president can grab him by the pussy, can I just have a kiss and an acai bowl?
So the one of the moments that kind of stand out to me with Miley is that moment, I think it was the VMAs. Do you remember when she sang Blurred Lines with what's his name? Robin Thicke?
Yes.
And he had that like Beetlejuice pinstripe suit on or whatever?
Yes. And she had
And
like the one piece bear thing.
yeah, but she was like twerking on him, right?
Right.
She got all the slut shame for that, and nobody pointed out how fucking creepy like an older man grinding on like I'm pretty sure she was of age at that point, but
But still
still,
young.
but she was still very, very young,
Hmm.
compared to him, and nobody
Exactly.
pointed him out for that, you know?
Exactly. Amber Rose, unfortunately, has also been slut shamed. Kim Kardashian is constantly just thrown under the bus. Ariana Grande, Taylor Swift, so speaking on Apple Music's Beat One, she said, it's a way to take a woman who's doing her job and succeeding at doing her job and making things in a way, it's figuring out how to completely minimize that skill of songwriting by taking something that everyone in their darkest, deepest moments loves to do, which is just to slut shame, you know? That happened to me at a very young age. That was one of the first times I was like, wow, this is not fair. Do you want to tell us a little bit about, because you mentioned she had some music that
Yeah,
corresponds
so
with this.
I guess she wrote this one back when 1989 came out the first time because she just re-released Taylor's version when she re-recorded
Mm-hmm.
all her masters.
Mm-hmm.
But on her latest Taylor's version, 1989, she released an unreleased track called Slut. This calls out slut shaming. So she says, it became clear to me that for me, there was no such thing as casual dating or even having a male friend who you platonically hang out with. So this says, once Swifties cracked the code and discovered that one of Taylor Swift's 1989 vault tracks was titled Slut, it quickly became the most anticipated track on the album's re-release. Throughout her career, Taylor has received cruel criticism and has been on the end of relentless slut shaming for, checks notes, dating in her 20s. Now, in her flirty 30s, Tay revisited that time in her life in her lengthy prologue and on the dreamy synth pop track Slut. Okay, so when she was talking about like a male friend that she's platonically hanging out with, she says, if I was seen with him, it was assumed that I was sleeping with him. And so I swore off hanging out with guys. She wrote in her album's prologue. Dating, flirting, or anything that could be weaponized against me by a culture that claimed to believe in liberating women but consistently treated me with harsh moral codes of the Victorian era. On her latest vault track, which was co-written by Jack Antonoff and Patrick Berger, Taylor addresses the slut shamers and lets go of her inhibitions in a new relationship because no matter what she does, she knows she's going to be criticized anyway. So without further ado, find the full slut lyrics meaning with some receipts ahead. So it talks a little bit more about the lyrics. The lyrics are pretty cool. It's a cool song. It's very, very like it's just very dreamy sounding.
Okay. It'll be
Um,
on our WMSR then, right?
Yes, we will put this on the next WMSR episode. So, in the pre chorus, she describes the rush of falling in love with someone and how discomfort can sometimes feel exhilarating. She also notes that she'll pay the price or be on the receiving end of endless criticism and slut shaming while her partner remains unscathed. So, the chorus is the following. These are the lyrics to the chorus. It says, "But if I'm all dressed up, they might as well be looking at us. And if they call me a slut, you know it might be worth it for once. And if I'm gonna be drunk, might as well be drunk in love." So she expresses that in this new relationship, she lets go of presenting herself a certain way because she's going to be criticized no matter what she does. Also, because she has, quote, taste, there may be an ode to Beyonce's Drunk in Love, which was probably released around the same time that Taylor wrote this track. Since the song Slut dropped, fans have speculated that it ties back to Taylor's whirlwind romance with Harry Styles. In 2012 and 2013, One Direction stans reportedly sent hate to Taylor when dating rumors circulated, hence the line, "Everyone wants him, that was my crime, the wrong place at the right time."
So listen, when she was dating Tom Hiddleston, I was like, yes, girl, get it.
Yeah, yeah.
I'm just living vicariously through you, honey. They're so cute.
Right. I'm pretty sure that was a publicity stunt, that one. Because it just like,
I could believe that. Yeah.
it just rubbed me the wrong. It didn't seem authentic. It rubbed me the wrong way.
Right.
But anyway, going back to our long list of celebrities who have been slut shamed, we have Bella Thorne, and then we have a few here, and I'm sure there's plenty more than this, but these are just the few that I thought could think of off the top of my head that I remember seeing in the headlines growing up, and I was just like, felt so bad for these girls. So the following are of the camp that their nude photos or sex tapes, which were meant to be private, were leaked to the public, and these girls were in essence slut shamed for something that was supposed to be private that wasn't through any fault of their own. So Jennifer Lawrence, she was in a loving long distance relationship for 4 years and sent private photos to her then boyfriend, and that was like the only way they could really like be sexual with each other because they were
I
long
did
distance.
not know that. I didn't know she was in that mess.
Yeah. So her iCloud, I guess, was hacked, and her, along with many other celebrities, their private nude photos were leaked to the world in a scandal known as the Fappening. So yeah, she was horrified about that whole experience, and there's articles about, her response to that whole situation. We'll link all these in our show notes if you guys want to read more about each of these instances. The next one that I could think of off the top of my head was Paris Hilton. So her sex tape was titled One Night in Paris, and this was footage of her getting intimate with her then boyfriend, which was leaked onto the internet in 2004. So she actually tried to sue him to stop this video from getting out. So her boyfriend was actually the one that she was supposed to love and trust, was actually the one who leaked this footage. So she tried to sue him, or she sued him from trying to stop this video from getting out. And Paris claimed that she was, quote, out of it and didn't know what she was even doing during the taping, which led to a collective shrug from her ex. And he was married at that point, a much older Rick Solomon. The collective also kind of dismissed her as, I guess just some slutty girl as well. So the video became a smash hit, the number one selling porn title for 2 years straight at that time. And at the time, she was suddenly the biggest porn star in the world without her consent.
Wow. And I guess the Kim Kardashian makes that list too. Well, didn't she have a video?
She did, but I'm pretty sure that Kim, I might be wrong about this, but I'm pretty sure she's collecting royalties from that.
Oh my God. Okay. Well, hey,
So
get it.
she's getting her coin, so I guess, girl,
Let
you
it.
do you.
Okay.
I don't know the whole story, but I feel like Kim was maybe the one that was okay with putting the sex tape out there, maybe to chase some clout.
Okay.
All I'm saying. The next one is the first and foremost one of our known generation, anyway, via the internet, was the one with Pamela Anderson. She was one of the first celebrities exploited in an internet sex scandal, because back when that happened, the internet was very new, very fresh. Her and her then husband, Tommy Lee, filmed themselves having sex on their private yacht on their honeymoon. The tape was put in a safe in their home, and a bitter contract that Tommy Lee had a falling out with. This contractor stole the entire safe from Lee's home, found the tape by accident, saw what it was, and then I guess saw some dollar signs in his eyes, made copies, put them up for sale through the internet. And like once it's out there, it's out there. Nobody understood how the internet really worked back then. So they were like, Pam and Tommy, I guess, were just like, delete it, make it go away. And they're like, it's already out. Like, we can't do anything about it. Like, so they never saw a dime from the sale of that sex tape. And Pamela has been very outspoken in her disgust for not wanting a dime from those sales. And after years of being slut shamed by the public, she finally released her documentary recently, a couple years ago, taking back the narrative and telling the story on her own terms. And it's a great documentary on Netflix. I'm pretty sure her son directed it or produced it. So she basically told the story in her own words how it should have been. Because recently, before she released that documentary, I forget what channel did. I think Hulu released a biopic or
Yeah, it was like Pam
something.
and Tommy or something like that.
Yeah,
Which,
yeah, which
yeah.
kind of like, told the story, but not
And
in
I
her.
don't think she gave the okay. She was like not okay with them making that film.
Yeah. Yeah, she had no idea about that, and that wasn't on her terms. The last one that I have on this list is Vanessa Hudgens. I don't know if you remember, in 2007, she was only 18 years old, and her privacy was compromised after a nude photo of her surfaced online about a year after High School Musical was released. At the time, the Disney actress issued a statement apologizing to fans and expressing regret over taking the photos. So she released that apology. It doesn't say that here, but she actually released that apology because Disney forced her to release that apology, or she
That's
will lose. Yeah,
unbelievable.
or she will lose her contracts with Disney. Yeah.
Unbelievable.
So she was shamed into releasing an apology
For
saying that
something that she didn't do. Something
something
that
that
was
was
her private property.
it wasn't even her fucking fault. Right.
Oh.
Right. So she was forced to be apologize for something that was not even her fault. So in an interview with Cosmopolitan UK, published this said it was published Friday. You could take that part out. In an interview with Cosmopolitan UK, Hutchins said it was a traumatizing time for her. Quote, "It was a really traumatizing thing for me. It's really fucked up that people feel like they are entitled enough to for me to share something that personal with the world." And there's a whole article about that which we'll link if you guys want to go read more about her experience with that whole thing. And really, those are just a handful. Honestly, there are so many other celebrities that have been slut shamed for private moments that have been leaked without their consent, which is just so fucking disgusting to me.
This doesn't even touch the surface of probably how many celebrities actually have. Some of this is just like off the top of my head
Right.
of people who were in my lifetime, you know,
Right.
it was seen as like, oh, they're promiscuous, they sleep around, right?
Yeah.
And one of those people I have always looked up to because she's just amazing in my eyes, Angelina Jolie. She's openly bisexual, but in the 90s, that made her a slut. Christina Aguilera, you included on here, and this is from Billboard.com, and I think this is a quote from her. It says, "There are a lot of double standards with it," she said candidly, because I went on tour with, this is exactly what we were talking about last episode. She went on tour with Justin Timberlake. We did the Stripped and Justified tour, and there were things where I was just like, why is it okay for him and not okay for me? You know what I mean? She says, "I was constantly pushing back in my way. It was so inappropriate sometimes, the things the media asked about that era." Is this Anderson Cooper? It says Cooper agreed that the beautiful singer, adding that the comparison of men doing the same thing is like, I'm doing the same thing and I'm being called a slut, and he's like the boy next door. Back in the day, Aguilera was a trailblazer in proudly expressing female sexuality through her songs and music videos, something she still sees as important 20 years later. The vocalist recently launched her own sexual wellness brand, Playground. Even though society is finally starting to catch up, she still recalls the incessant slut shaming she experienced as a young artist. Something she says now she finds funny, given that she didn't even lose her virginity until, quote, later than you would think. Was her stripped phase part of that Lady Marmalade era?
It was right between. No, actually, Lady Marmalade was like right after she released her debut album.
Mm. Mm-hmm.
Stripped was a little later on when
Mm.
I guess she, was becoming successful. She already made her name in the industry at that point. So now she could do a little more of like what she wanted to do.
Right.
So she really stripped it back, and like the album was more about like being naked and being like sexual. Like it was more like intimate, like her inner
Mm.
soul.
Mm-hmm.
And like she talked a little bit about the abuse that her father would do to her mother, and like
Mm.
she talked about everything on that album.
Wow.
That's a great album. That's probably my favorite album of hers.
It's interesting though that the precursor to that, she was featured in the Lady Marmalade video, which they're all dressed as like can dancers and courtesans like in
Courtesans.
Moulin Rouge, and that
Right.
is historically their job was dancers, not maybe not so much sex workers, but in that line it kind of gets a little blurred. The version of herself she was putting out, choosing to do an amazing song like that it was a cover, right, of an older song with all of these other star-studded, all these other amazing vocalists,
Yeah.
I'm sure was not looked at for the talent. It was looked at like, oh wow, these slutty women,
Yeah.
XYZ.
Look at these trollops dancing
These
around on
trollops.
stage.
Yeah.
Yeah, I still freaking love her.
Yeah. She goes on to say, I was like, I have to do songs that mean something to me and are valid to who I am and being fearless and talking about anything. The 5-time Grammy winner continued on the podcast, and that includes sexuality. I felt that there was a lot of shame and fear around the subject, so I wanted to be who I was and make a safe space for everyone to feel good and make it a conversation.
So Cooper, before you said Cooper, this is talking about Alex Cooper because she was on the
Oh.
do you know that podcast? She was the host of Call Her Daddy. Do you know that podcast?
No.
So it's basically it started off as two girls and then one girl fucked off and then like it's just Alex Cooper now. Like they had a falling out and now it's
Okay.
just Alex. It's a podcast that basically it spits in I'm reading the description on Google. It says she bulldozed a lane of her own, spitting in the face of misogyny and putting a modern twist on feminism. And she talks a lot. The whole podcast is very sexually just freeing, sexually open. She
Okay.
talks open about her sexuality, her sexual experiences. Someone's very funny. But she actually talked about all of that stuff with Christina, and I actually watched that whole episode. It's a pretty good episode.
Oh, okay.
So we'll link that below if you guys want to check that out. So Megan Fox actually wrote a book of poetry called Pretty Boys Are Poisonous. And about the book, she says, these poems are written in an attempt to exorcise the illness that had taken root in me because of my silence. I've spent my entire life keeping the secrets of men. My body aches from carrying the weight of their sins. My freedom lives in these pages, and I hope that my words can inspire others to take back their happiness and their identity by using their voice to illuminate what's been buried but not forgotten in the darkness. Liberating was the word I was trying to
Got it.
think of before. Sexually liberating. So here are actually a couple samples of the poems in Megan's book that fall in line with our topic of the month,
Awesome.
conveniently enough. So the first poem is called I've Always Liked Serpents. So it goes like this. It says, maybe the apple was actually a cock, and maybe Eve wanted it because Adam was too busy, self-absorbed, and distracted to fuck her. Maybe the original sin was a man taking a woman for granted.
Mm.
Savage.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then the next one is the truth about Lilith. Megan writes, they say she dwells in the cities of the sea. They say she was a banshee, a demon hag, that she seduces innocent men in their sleep. They say she eats babies, but really, she was just a woman who refused to get on all fours so an insecure man could feel like a god.
Damn.
Damn, girl. Who hurt you?
Men. All the men.
All the men. Exactly. All the fucking men. It seems like a good book. I was watching a review on YouTube. It popped up in my feed and I just like put it on just to see what it was. I was like, oh, Megan Fox wrote a book. Okay. A guy was reviewing it and one of his reviews was that like each page she didn't use both sides of the page and some of the poems are like one line long on a full page of like nothing else.
Okay.
And so he's like, yeah, maybe it's not worth the money. There's more pages in the book that actually have writing on them, so maybe you think you're buying more than you're really purchasing.
Got
Maybe
it. It might be an Amazon purchase, like a Kindle purchase. Would
yeah,
probably be better.
yeah, maybe.
I always forget. My knowledge of her is so surface level.
Yeah.
But then I remember her little interview she did with whatever the crazy guy, Gunsmith. What's his name? Gunshot Johnny.
Who?
The guy she used to, the crazy dude.
Oh, Machine Gun Kelly. Gunshot Johnny. That guy.
Where she sits down and he's like, well, what are my signs? And she's like, well, your sun is in Cancer and your rising is in Scorpio. And she does his whole chart. And I always forget that these people we only see, the surface level of them. Yeah. Like she is very deep in this cathartic writing of hers. I'd be really interested to see because yes, she's making money off of it, but also if we all had the opportunity and the option of being able to get out our pain in writing or music and have it be picked up and us see something from that, I think a lot of us would take that opportunity.
Oh, 100%. Are you kidding me? Yeah. I spent my entire late teens, early 20s writing about the men who hurt me.
Right.
And guys that I was like, maybe hooking up with, but still friends with, and had to run in the same social circles, they would come to my fucking shows and I'd be on a stage singing about them while they're sitting right in front of me in the audience.
Ooh.
I was Taylor Swift, but before Taylor Swift was Taylor Swift. Like, my tongue was so sharp and my pen was even fucking sharper.
Hell yeah.
I was writing all the shit and I
Had a
was
good.
telling all the truths on the stage while I made them sat there and listen to me.
I want to see some of your old writing.
I was Stevie Nicks on the stage singing the shit to Lindsey Buckingham on the same stage. Like during Silver Springs. Remember
Amazing.
that? Remember that whole thing?
I put that one on our list for our MSR because I thought that one was so good.
Yeah, yeah, so good. But like sometimes dudes need a little fucking reality check. And I'm here to fucking give it to you
Justina is here to tell you about yourself.
with my songs.
Yeah. Yeah.
But ultimately, like, those songs never went anywhere. I never really saw a dime from any of it, but it felt damn good getting that out.
Good. Yeah.
Well, damn, that was worth its weight in gold in and of itself. Just like having those men who did me so fucking wrong, having them hear exactly what they did to me while they sit there
Mm.
and listen to it. And it's just
Mm.
so satisfying, so fucking
Yeah.
gratifying. So,
Cast that spell, girl.
yes, that spell. There's one more thing that I wanted to talk about, which randomly came to me. There's something called, have you ever heard of a Sheela Na Gig?
No.
Okay.
What is this?
So I actually just came across this recently when I was reading a Francesca Leah Block novel called House of Hearts. So in the novel, the main character, Izzy, is searching for her boyfriend who disappears in the middle of the night. She goes to this weird retreat center and she finds one of these objects called a Sheela Na Gig. I never heard of the term before, but when Block described it, I had to look it up. And then I was intrigued because of the series, this slut shame series that we're covering. I just thought it was too perfect to not talk about here. A little bit about Block, Francesca Leah Block. Her writing is fairy tale, like gritty fairy tales, and a lot of her stuff is very esoteric, but set in reality. So it's like a cool, like weird juxtaposition, duality kind of thing, if you're into that sort of thing. I freaking love her books. Even her novels are like pure poetry, just listening to the way she describes things. But a Sheela Na Gig, she talked about this. I'm like, what the fuck is that? So do you see the picture?
I see the picture. I'm intrigued.
Okay, so it's just to explain a little bit about a Sheela Na Gig and what that is. So a Sheela Na Gig is a medieval stone figurative carving of a naked woman with the legs wide apart and the hands emphasizing the genitals, often displaying an exaggerating vulva. And if you look at the picture, it's basically a figure of a woman kind of grabbing her own vagina and pulling it open.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah. It's a cavern.
A cavern. So they are actually architectural grotesques found throughout most of Europe, mainly Britain and Ireland, in cathedrals, castles, and other buildings.
Cathedrals.
Yeah, yeah.
Interesting. You can't really tell that it is a woman other than that yoni shape.
The face kind of looks like E.T., does it not?
Yes, yes,
It has
yes.
an extraterrestrial vibe about the face,
Yes.
but it is supposed to be a woman. It has a vagina and it's pulling it open for, I
Yes.
guess, the world to explore. So the carvings may have been used to ward off death, evil, and, ready? Demons!
Diamonds.
Other grotesque carvings, such as gargoyles and hunky punks, that's, I've never heard of that, but they were
on that.
frequently part of church decorations all over Europe, and it is commonly said that their purpose was to keep evil spirits away. I guess it's a form of apotropic magic. Didn't we talk about
We did.
magic in our sympathetic magic episode a little bit?
Mm-hmm.
So Sheela Na Gigs are often positioned over doors and windows, presumably to protect these openings. I guess it can be synonymous with the vaginal opening, like pulling apart the opening would also protect a door or opening vicariously.
Okay.
I guess so. That's the parallel or connection that I'm making. All right, so the Sheela Na Gigs actually serve a few different purposes. So the first one is the survival of a pagan goddess. So a popular hypothesis is Sheela Na Gigs represent a pagan goddess, but academics believe the situation was more complex, with multiple interpretations and roles for the female character, as spiritual traditions changed over time. The goddess usually is identified as Celtic, the hag, like the Cailleach figure of Irish and Scottish mythology. Margaret Murray proposed this, as did Anne Ross, who wrote in her essay The Divine Hag of the Pagan Celts. I would like to suggest that in their earliest iconographic form, they do in fact portray the territorial or war goddess in her hag-like aspect. Georgia Rhodes suggests the figures may represent the crone or an earth goddess from Celtic mythology. There's a whole bunch of different paragraphs in each of these sections. I kind of just grabbed what I thought was relevant. But if you guys want to read this, this is on there's a whole wiki page for Sheela Na Gigs. But the next purpose is fertility. This hypothesis usually is combined with the quote goddess explanation. Barbara Freytag suggests the figures were used in a fertility context and associated them with birthing stones. But there is folkloric evidence of at least some of the Sheela Na Gigs being used in this manner, with the figures being loaned out to women in labor. Other examples are associated with wedding traditions.
I fucking love this picture.
Right?
I
Yeah.
love that picture you put.
Okay.
Please describe this to me.
I'm going to describe this picture, and you guys can see this picture in our show notes, but one of the other purposes for a Sheela Na Gig is to protect against evil. So this photo is actually a La Fontaine plate illustrated by Charles Eisen, 1762. So Anderson and Ware and German think the figures may also have been used as protection against evil. This would explain the use of the figures on structures such as castles. They served as an apotropic function designed to ward off evil. In Ireland, some of the figures were called the evil eye stones, which supported their theory. Some folkloric evidence is known as anasurma, or skirt lifting, which is being used by women to ward off evil spirits. Anderson reproduces an 18th century illustration by Charles Eisen from La Fontaine's Nouveaux Contes in 1764, showing a demon being repulsed by the sight of a woman lifting her skirt to display her genitals.
This reminds me of old Greg. Do you see my downstairs mix up? And he lifts his skirt and it's like, bah! Light.
This
coming
photo
out.
has me rolling. It had me rolling.
It's
I was like,
awesome.
I have to include this one.
I love it. Can this be the picture for our listen now for
yes
installment?
Absolutely.
Cool.
Absolutely. So another purpose for the Sheela Na Gig was to warn against lust. So Ware and German suggested the Sheela Na Gigs serve to warn against lust. They see the figures as a religious warning against sins of the flesh. Exhibitionist figures of all types, male, female, and bestial, are found frequently in the company of images of beasts devouring people and other hellish images. These images, they argue, were used as a means of religious instruction to a largely illiterate populace. As part of this interpretation, they explore a continental origin for the figures. Anderson first suggested this origin, and Ware and German continued and expanded this line of inquiry. They argue the motif migrated from the continent via the pilgrim routes to and from Santiago de Compostela. Pilgrim sculptors noted what they had seen on the route and ended up carving their own interpretations of the motifs. Eventually, the exhibitionist motif was transferred to Ireland and Britain. This theory seems to accommodate many of the religious figures, but relates less well to some of the secular ones. Images carved on castles would not seem to be serving a religious purpose. The figure at Haddon Hall appears on a stable, although this may have been moved from elsewhere. The theory does not seem to apply to all the figures. And lastly, one of the other purposes is feminist reinterpretation of the image. So feminist scholarship has reinterpreted the concept of the Sheela Na Gig, especially in terms of the image as evil or embodiment of sin. Feminists have adopted the image as an icon, with feminist authors viewing the sexuality of the Sheela Na Gig more positively as an empowering figure. Reverence for female sexuality and vulvas can be seen in the art of Judy Chicago's The Dinner Party and the Vagina Monologues by Eve Ensler. In Wide Open to Mirth and Wonder, Lutz Mar Gonzalez Arias argues that the creative reimagining of this medieval female figure can, quote, encourage contemporary women to stop perceiving their own corporeality as a heavy, awkward, and shameful burden of guilt, end quote. Irish writer Molly Mullins' essay Representation of History, Irish Feminism, and the Politics of Difference claims that the image of the Sheela Na Gig has almost become emblematic of Irish feminism as a force for hope and change. Scholar Georgia Rhodes argues that for many contemporary feminists, the gesture of the Sheela Na Gig's unapologetic sexual display is a, quote, message about her body, its power, and significance, a gesture of rebellion against misogyny rather than an endorsement of it, end quote. So just some of the parallels between, I guess, the Sheela Na Gig and religion, or it says the Encyclopedia of Religion in its article on Yoni notes the similarity between the positioning of many Sheela Na Gigs above doorways or windows and the wooden female figures carved over the doorways of chiefs' houses in the Paluan archipelago. Called Dilukai or Dilugai, they are typically shown with legs splayed, revealing a large black triangular pubic area. The hands rest upon the thighs. The writers of the encyclopedia say, quote, "These female figures protect the villagers' health and ward off evil spirits as well. They are constructed by ritual specialists according to strict rules, which, if broken, would result in the specialists as well as the chief's death. It is not coincidental that each example of signs representing the female genitalia used as apotropic devices are found on gates. The vulva is the primordial gate, the mysterious divide between non-life and life," end quote. And to end this off with a little more pop culture, English alternative rocker and singer-songwriter PJ Harvey actually has a song called Sheela Na Gig. And the song was released as the second single from her debut studio album Dry in February 1992. Speaking of the song's inspiration and message, Harvey Melody Maker in 1992, quote, "I liked the image of a Sheela Na Gig, the combination of pulling yourself apart and laughing at the same time. I wanted that sense of humor in the song. The song is the collection of different moments between lovers. I suppose it's about being able to laugh at yourself in relationships. There's some anger in there, but for me, it's a funny song. I wasn't intending to be a feminist or with the song or anything. I wanted it to have several sides," she added to NME. So she also says the song isn't actually about a Sheela Na Gig. "I just used it as a starting point. The song itself is autobiographical based on various experiences." And there's a lot more about that song, but I'm going to save it for, I think that's a good thing to add to our next installment of our WMSR.
Okay. Yeah, it's coming up.
So I think that's all I got for now, for today. Do you have anything?
Sluts. We did it.
Sluts! Hail sluts!
Hail the sluts. Hail Lilith. Hex the patriarchy. Do what you will, harm none.
Celebrate your inner swamp slut.
Fuck it up. Yeah, visit our Teespring for the merch. We got a new t-shirt over there. Check it out. And if you want to support our podcast, here's how.
You can check out all of the sources pertaining to today's episode via our hero page. The link is in our show notes. And thanks again to our patron and Palmiers for creating this app and keeping creators like us organized. If you guys do want to support the podcast on Patreon, you can support us for as little as $1 a month. That's our seedling tier, and that gets you access to our patron-only polls where you get to weigh in on what topics you would like us to talk about next. It also gets you our monthly calendar so you can see what topics we have coming up for the month, and it also gets you a welcome shout out on the show. Our $3 Lavender Bud tier gets you our show notes for each episode in an aesthetically pleasing PDF, our after hours posts, if there's any extra tidbits or behind the scenes info pertaining to any of our episodes, we'll post those along with the blog post or extra photos, and access to our specially curated Spotify playlists. We have created playlists for our WMSR episodes as well as Production Dream playlists for each song episode, and more. Our $5 Lilac tier gets you access to our private Facebook community where we host a monthly live stream. Plus, you'll get access to our Discord server where we host our monthly watch parties. And also on the Discord, you can join in on the discussion with other Magnolia Street neighbors via the various interesting channels and threads. And then here's the $8 Rose tier. This gets you access to extra audio visual content such as a once a month full-length video episode, unlimited bonus videos, uncut footage, cutting room floor footage, bloopers, outtakes, meditations, exclusive interviews, and old home videos from the vault, or spell or ritual videos, and more. It also gets you bonus content to coincide with our song-episodes, such as full-length demo streams of our original Practical Magic inspired music, plus lyric sheets, guitar chords, and original scratch demos, or bonus video performances of our songs and more. Lastly, we have our $15 Wisteria Vine tier. Just like a twisting Wisteria Vine, there's a way for you to stay connected with us, the Stinas. In this tier, we invite you to join our private Marco Polo video messaging app. The app is totally free for both Android and iOS. Sign up with your phone number or email, and we will help you do the rest. This is a great way to chat with each other in a more intimate group setting, face-to-face via video recording. We love to show each other our pets, our gardens, or anything anything else you'd like to share. And just a reminder that the higher the tier you sign up under, the more rewards you get, because you get all of the rewards of the tiers below it. You can upgrade or downgrade or even cancel at any time. So to support the podcast, head to patreon.com/Magnolia Street Podcast.
Yeah, and there are additional ways to support us and our podcast that don't cost you any money. If you do listen on Spotify, please give us a star rating. If you listen to us on Apple Podcasts, please give us a written review. We love sharing those on our Instagram. And if you're on Instagram, we would really appreciate any reposts or blurbs about our podcast. And make sure to tag us at Magnolia Street Podcast in your feed, posts, stories, and share us with your practical magic loving friends.
I think that's all we got for today. Are you slutted out?
Woo! No, I'm feeling revved up.
You feeling slutty? Slutty. Are you gonna go expose your genitals to a demon? Go lift that skirt. Holy shit.
We hope you enjoyed a little bit of sluttery, a little bit of slutation. And come back every Friday for new episodes. I'm Christina.
I'm Justina.
We'll see you next time.
At the house on Magnolia Street, would you